Have you ever felt buffeted by life's winds, tossed about by emotions you can't control? It's a universal human experience. We chase happiness, avoid pain, and often feel utterly powerless as circumstances dictate our emotional state. We believe that if only we had more control over the outside world, if only people behaved differently, if only we had more wealth or recognition, then true peace would finally be ours. This longing for external validation and control is a deep-seated human drive, but it's also a fundamental illusion. The Stoics, an ancient school of philosophy, understood this deep human struggle millennia ago. They didn't dismiss emotions, but they offered a radical path to mastering them. They proposed a way to build an inner fortress, an unshakable core of tranquility that no external event could dismantle. It's a journey from the noisy, chaotic external world to the quiet, profound depths within. This journey isn't about suppressing feelings or becoming a cold automaton. Instead, it's about understanding where true power lies. It's about untangling the illusions that bind us, those deeply ingrained beliefs about what actually controls our happiness and our suffering. We'll begin by dismantling the deceptive allure of external power, a concept that occupies so much of our waking thoughts and private anxieties. We'll start by looking at the grand pronouncements of those who seemingly wield ultimate authority, the emperors and kings, and uncover their own hidden vulnerabilities. Imagine standing before a man who commands legions, who can decree life or death with a word. The emperor, he seems to possess absolute power, the ultimate symbol of control. His will shapes nations, his decisions ripple across continents. Doesn't he have everything? Isn't he the master of his own destiny, and indeed, the destiny of others? We often look at such figures and feel a pang of envy, believing their external wealth and authority equate to true command over their lives. We see their palaces, their wealth, their unquestioned authority, and we fall for the lie that this is where happiness and security are found. But what if the emperor's greatest struggle, his most profound battle, wasn't fought on some distant battlefield against barbarians? What if his true enemy resided within the very walls of his opulent palace, within the confines of his own mind? Consider the constant pressure, the endless stream of demands, the ever-present threat of betrayal, the loneliness that can accompany such heights of power. Could it be that the man with the most external power is actually the most vulnerable, the one most susceptible to the whims of fortune and the turmoil of his own thoughts? This isn't just about emperors, though. It's about the illusions of power we chase in our own lives, the external things we believe will grant us control. And real quick, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos just like this. Now let's keep going. This idea of the emperor's supposed lack of control is where we begin to see the grand illusion at play. We are conditioned from birth to believe that power comes from external sources. We are taught that wealth buys freedom, that social status commands respect, that physical strength ensures safety, and that political influence dictates happiness. We spend our lives accumulating these external assets, convinced that they are the keys to a life of fulfillment and security. Yet history and countless personal stories tell a different tale. The richest man can be plagued by anxiety, the most admired person can be consumed by insecurity, and the seemingly strongest individual can be brought low by a single, unexpected illness. The pursuit of external power is like trying to fill a leaky bucket. No matter how much you pour in, be it money, possessions, or accolades, it never truly satisfies. The peace it promises is fleeting, always dependent on maintaining that external acquisition. This constant striving, this reliance on things outside ourselves, leaves us perpetually vulnerable. A stock market crash can wipe out a fortune, a scandal can tarnish a reputation, a health crisis can render the strongest person frail. The foundation we've built our sense of control upon is, in reality, shifting sand. We are so deeply invested in this external game that we rarely question its efficacy. We see others playing it, and we assume it's the only way. But what if the very nature of power is misunderstood? What if the true seat of power isn't in commanding armies or accumulating vast fortunes, but somewhere entirely different? To truly grasp this, we must turn to the wisdom of those who understood this deception long ago, and Epictetus offers us a vital first step in his fundamental directives. Epictetus, a former slave who rose to become one of the most influential Stoic philosophers, recognized the profound error in our common understanding of power. He distilled this understanding into a fundamental, almost simple principle. He declared that some things are within our control and some things are not. This isn't just a philosophical observation, it's a practical, life-altering command. Think about it: what truly belongs to you, your thoughts, your judgments, your desires, your intentions. He argued that these internal states are the only things that are unequivocally ours. Conversely, consider the external world: your body, your possessions, your reputation, the actions of others, the weather, the outcome of events. All of these are, by their very nature, outside our absolute command. We can influence them, we can prepare for them, but we cannot decree their final state. Our deep dissatisfaction and suffering arise precisely from the moment we try to bend these external things fully to our will, or when we allow them to dictate our internal state. We chafe against what we cannot change, and we despair when things don't go according to our external dependent wishes. This distinction is not a mere intellectual exercise. It's the bedrock of Stoic practice. To ignore it is to build your house on a foundation of sand, constantly at the mercy of the tides. To embrace it, however, is to begin constructing an inner citadel unassailable by the storms of life. But identifying what is and isn't within our control is only the first step. The real challenge lies in consistently applying this knowledge, especially when faced with the seemingly overwhelming forces of the external world. This leads us directly to defining the boundaries of our true dominion. So we have this fundamental division: what we can control and what we cannot. Epictetus' wisdom guides us to focus our energy and attention solely on the former. Your circle of true control isn't about what you can physically manipulate in the world. It's far more intimate. It encompasses your thoughts, your judgments, your desires, your aversions, and your intentions. These are the internal engines of your experience. You decide what you believe, what you value, how you interpret an event, and what your goals will be. This is your sovereign territory, the only realm where you possess ultimate authority. When you try to exert control over anything outside this circle, like trying to force someone to like you, guarantee a specific job outcome, or ensure perfect health, you are stepping onto unstable ground. You are setting yourself up for disappointment, frustration, and ultimately, suffering. Imagine a general who bravely leads his troops into battle but spends all his energy worrying about the weather forecast, a factor completely beyond his command. His focus is divided, his true power diluted. Similarly, when we are consumed by external outcomes, we neglect the very arena where our strength truly lies. Understanding this circle of true control is liberating, but it's also a profound responsibility. It means admitting that much of what we fret about, much of what we rage against, is beyond our direct power to change. Yet, we continue to pour our emotional and mental resources into these external battles. The next crucial step in this Stoic journey is to redefine what truly holds value in our lives, moving away from the superficial allure of external gains and towards the enduring substance of our inner world. Once we grasp the concept of our circle of control, the next undeniable imperative is to reassess our deepest values. If external things are ultimately beyond our command and therefore unreliable sources of happiness or security, what then should we value? The Stoics argued vehemently against chasing conventional markers of success. They saw wealth, fame, health, and pleasure as indifferents, things that are neither inherently good nor bad, but can be used well or poorly. The pursuit of these external goods, as ends in themselves, is a recipe for perpetual dissatisfaction because their attainment is never guaranteed. Instead, they elevated virtue as the sole true good. Virtue to the Stoics meant living in accordance with reason and nature. This includes qualities like wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. These are not things you can have like a possession. They are ways of being, actions, and character traits that reside entirely within your circle of control. When you prioritize virtue, you are focusing on becoming the best version of yourself, regardless of external circumstances. A kind act, a moment of courage, a wise decision, these are achievements that no external force can take away. This redefinition is challenging because society constantly bombards us with messages that glorify external achievement. We are told that happiness lies in what we own, what we achieve, and what others think of us. But by consistently shifting our focus to the cultivation of virtue, we begin to build a form of wealth that is impervious to fortune. This inner richness is resilient. However, acknowledging the weight of our current external attachments and the illusions we hold is essential before we can fully embrace this new value system. We walk through life often blindfolded, tethered by invisible chains of illusion. These aren't physical chains, but deeply ingrained beliefs about how the world works and what constitutes a good life. We are taught to equate external validation with self-worth, to believe that fame and fortune are the ultimate goals, and that avoiding discomfort is paramount to happiness. These illusions weigh us down, preventing us from seeing reality clearly and from acting with true freedom. They are the subtle forces that drive us to chase after things we don't truly need and to suffer over things we cannot change. Consider the illusion of permanence. We build our lives around the assumption that things will stay the same. We form attachments to people, possessions, and situations, believing they will always be there. Yet the universe is constantly in flux. Nothing remains static. When we cling to this illusion of permanence, the inevitable changes, loss, aging, decay, hit us with the force of a devastating blow. We are shocked and heartbroken because we failed to recognize the inherent impermanence of all things, a fundamental aspect of nature itself. This weight of illusion is not easily shed. It's comfortable, familiar. To question these deeply held beliefs feels like questioning our very identity. It requires courage to peer behind the curtain and see the machinations of our own minds. Yet until we begin to acknowledge and dismantle these illusions, particularly the pervasive tyranny of what others think, we will remain prisoners to external forces beyond our control, unable to access the true freedom that lies within our grasp. Perhaps one of the most suffocating illusions we carry is the overwhelming importance we place on the opinions of others. From childhood, we are trained to seek approval, to fear criticism, and to shape our behavior based on what we imagine others are thinking. This tyranny of opinion dictates our choices, manipulates our emotions, and steals our authentic selves. We worry about what our bosses think, what our friends think, what strangers on the internet think. We might straighten our posture, soften our words, or even stifle our true beliefs, all in a desperate bid to gain favor or avoid disapproval. Imagine a sculptor who spends his entire life trying to create a statue that will please every passerby. He'd be constantly chipping away, changing forms, never achieving a definitive shape, and ultimately producing a mess. Similarly, when we live our lives trying to conform to the ever-shifting sands of public opinion, we become shapeless, inauthentic versions of ourselves. We lose touch with our own inner compass, our own true desires and values. Our emotional well-being becomes a fragile commodity, dependent on the fleeting and often fickle judgments of others. The Stoics understood that the opinions of others are entirely outside our circle of control. We cannot dictate what others think, nor can we truly control their reactions to us. Yet we allow their imagined judgments to wield immense power over our lives. This is a profound surrender of our inner sovereignty. To break free from this tyranny, we must learn to separate the external noise of opinion from the internal voice of reason and self-knowledge. This separation is the crucial first step in understanding the true nature of reality and our place within it. The Stoics offered a powerful tool for dismantling the tyranny of opinion and other external influences. The practice of separating impressions from reality. An impression is our initial, often emotional, reaction to an event or a thought. It's the gut feeling, the immediate judgment, the mental image that pops into our minds. Reality, on the other hand, is the objective state of affairs, stripped of our interpretations and emotional overlays. The crucial skill is to recognize that our impression is not necessarily reality itself. Think about seeing a dark, shadowy figure in the distance at night. Your immediate impression might be fear, that it's a threat. But if you pause, if you apply reason, you might realize it's just a familiar tree or a harmless mailbox. The impression of danger was not the reality. This separation is vital because so much of our suffering comes not from events themselves, but from our interpretation of those events. We fall into despair when we interpret a setback as a catastrophe, or into rage when we interpret a mild inconvenience as a personal attack. By consistently practicing this separation, we begin to create a buffer between external events and our internal emotional response. We learn to observe our judgments and feelings without immediately acting on them or allowing them to define us. This pause, this moment of reasoned reflection, is where our true power lies. It's in this space that we can begin to construct an unassailable inner fortress, a place of calm and clarity where our true self can begin to emerge. This is the very beginning of building that essential inner citadel. The concept of the inner citadel is central to Stoic philosophy, a metaphor for the self-sufficient, unassailable fortress of the mind that no external circumstance can breach. It's not a physical place, but a state of being, cultivated through consistent practice and a deep understanding of Stoic principles. When you begin to separate impressions from reality, to recognize what is within your control and what is not, you are laying the very first stones for this citadel. Each act of reasoned judgment, each moment of choosing virtue over fleeting pleasure, each time you resist an irrational fear, you are adding another brick to its walls. This inner citadel is not built overnight. It requires diligent effort and a willingness to confront your own weaknesses and ingrained habits. It's about cultivating a robust internal defense system against the slings and arrows of fortune. It means developing resilience, not by avoiding hardship, but by learning to face it with equanimity and inner strength. The more you practice observing your reactions, questioning your automatic judgments, and grounding yourself in the reality of what you can control, your thoughts and actions, the stronger this citadel becomes. Imagine it as a quiet, well-guarded sanctuary within you. Outside, storms may rage, empires may crumble, and fortunes may be lost. But within this citadel, there is peace, clarity, and a profound sense of self-possession. This is not about becoming emotionless or detached from the world. It's about mastering your internal landscape so that you can engage with the external world from a place of strength, not vulnerability. However, even the strongest walls can have a weak point, and the first signs of that vulnerability often appear when we face the deeply ingrained beliefs we hold about ourselves. Even in the nascent stages of building our inner citadel, the world will inevitably test its integrity. Life, in its unpredictable fashion, will present challenges that seem designed to exploit our deepest insecurities. Perhaps it's a harsh criticism from someone we respect, a public failure, or a betrayal by a trusted friend. These moments can feel like a direct assault on the fragile walls we've been diligently constructing. It's in these instances that we often discover the first crack in the armor, a place where our defenses are not yet fully robust and where old habits of emotional reactivity threaten to resurface. You might have been diligently practicing separating impressions from reality, but then a comment cuts deeper than you expected. You thought you valued virtue above all else, but the allure of external praise or the sting of public shame unexpectedly rattles you. These junctures are not failures, they are crucial diagnostic moments. They reveal precisely where our understanding is still superficial, where our emotional conditioning is still dominant, and where our commitment to Stoic principles needs to be deepened. It's tempting to feel discouraged when these cracks appear. We might see them as evidence that we're not cut out for this path, that perhaps this inner peace is unattainable. However, the Stoics viewed these moments not as setbacks, but as opportunities for growth. They are precisely the situations that, when confronted correctly, lead to genuine strengthening. Recognizing these vulnerabilities is the prerequisite for truly confronting the unseen forces that often hold us captive, those invisible chains that bind us more tightly than any external force ever could. The unseen chains are the deeply ingrained patterns of thought and behavior that operate below our conscious awareness. They are the subconscious drivers, the automatic responses, the unexamined assumptions that dictate our actions and shape our emotional landscape. We might believe we are making conscious choices, but often we are merely reacting based on lifelong conditioning. These chains can manifest as irrational fears, persistent anxieties, compulsive behaviors, or a deep-seated sense of inadequacy. They are the invisible forces that keep us trapped in cycles of suffering, even when we intellectually understand the Stoic path. Think about procrastination, for example. On the surface, it might seem like a simple lack of discipline. But often, it's an unseen chain of fear of failure, a fear of not being perfect, or a fear of the judgment that might come with completing a task. Similarly, a constant need for external validation might stem from an unseen chain of childhood insecurity, an unaddressed belief that our worth is conditional. These chains are subtle, insidious, and incredibly powerful. They are easy to overlook because they are part of our very makeup, so familiar we don't recognize them as constraints. Confronting these unseen chains requires a deep level of introspection and honesty. It's about looking unflinchingly at our motivations, even the ones we'd rather not acknowledge. It's about recognizing that our reactions are not necessarily inevitable, but often patterned responses. This path often leads us to a challenging but ultimately freeing realization. The necessity of accepting what we cannot change, a principle that forms the bedrock of true tranquility, as we will explore next. Acceptance is often misunderstood as resignation or passive surrender. But in the Stoic tradition, acceptance is an active, empowering principle. It's not about liking or approving of difficult circumstances, but about acknowledging their reality and ceasing the futile struggle against what is beyond our control. This silent power of acceptance is the ultimate antidote to frustration, anger, and despair. When we fight against reality, we are like a sailor trying to command the wind. We expend enormous energy, achieve little, and exhaust ourselves in the process. The Stoics recognized that life is inherently unpredictable and often unfair. People will disappoint us, things will go wrong, and we will experience loss and pain. Trying to prevent these things from happening is not only impossible, but also a source of immense suffering. Acceptance means understanding that these events are part of the natural order of things, and our peace comes from aligning our will with this order, not from trying to impose our will upon it. It is the quiet recognition that this is happening, without adding the desperate plea of, "But it shouldn't be." This acceptance is a profound act of letting go. It frees up our mental and emotional energy, allowing us to focus on our responses within our circle of control, rather than wasting it on fighting the inevitable. It's a foundational step towards a deeper, more profound relationship with fate itself. This leads us to one of the most powerful Stoic concepts, amor fati, the love of fate, and understanding its role in forging an unshakable spirit. Amor fati, a Latin phrase that translates to love of fate, is perhaps the most profound and challenging aspect of Stoic philosophy. It's a principle that goes beyond mere acceptance. It demands that we not only tolerate, but actively embrace everything that happens in our lives, viewing it all as necessary and even good. this isn't about a passive resignation to destiny. Instead, it's an active, joyous affirmation of life in its totality. It's seeing every challenge, every setback, every seemingly negative event not as an obstacle to our happiness, but as an integral part of the unfolding tapestry of our existence. Imagine looking back on your life, not with regret for the hardships, but with gratitude for how they shaped you. Amor Fati encourages us to adopt this perspective. It asks us to believe that the universe, in its infinite wisdom, has orchestrated events for our ultimate growth and development, even if we cannot see the reason at the moment. This means loving not just the good times, but also the difficult ones, for they are the forge upon which true strength is. This concept is the ultimate expression of aligning our will with nature. When we truly embrace Amor Fati, we liberate ourselves from the constant internal battle against what is. We find an unshakable love for our circumstances, whatever they may be, because we trust in the process of life. And this deep-seated trust is the fertile ground from which the true birth of resilience can emerge. Resilience isn't about being impervious to pain or hardship. It's about the capacity to bounce back, to adapt, and to even grow stronger in the face of adversity. The Stoics understood that life will inevitably throw challenges our way, and that our genuine strength lies not in avoiding these challenges, but in how we respond to them. The birth of resilience is nurtured by the principles we've discussed: understanding control, valuing virtue, and practicing acceptance. When these are in place, setbacks no longer cripple us. They become opportunities for profound personal growth. Think of a tree that has weathered countless storms. Its roots have grown deeper, its trunk has become thicker, and its branches may bear the marks of past winds, but it stands stronger than before. Similarly, when we face difficulties with a Stoic mindset, we aren't just trying to survive them, we are actively strengthening our inner core. Each challenge overcome, each moment of fear faced down with reason, each instance of choosing virtue over convenience builds a reservoir of inner fortitude. This resilience is not a fixed trait that some people possess and others don't. It's a skill that is honed through practice and through the application of Stoic principles. It's the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can handle whatever life throws your way, not because you can control it, but because you can control your response to it. And this hard-won resilience is the foundation upon which we can begin to transform our scars into something truly powerful. Our scars, both physical and emotional, often represent moments of pain, vulnerability, and perceived failure. We tend to view them as blemishes, as evidence of our imperfections, something to be hidden or ashamed of. However, the Stoic perspective invites us to reframe these scars not as weaknesses, but as badges of honor, as testaments to our survival and our growth. This is the process of turning scars into strength. Each mark tells a story of a battle fought, a lesson learned, and a resilience forged. Consider a warrior returning from a difficult campaign, bearing the physical marks of conflict. Those scars might be reminders of pain, but they also signify courage, experience, and survival against the odds. In the same way, our emotional scars, the after-effects of heartbreak, loss, or public embarrassment, can become sources of profound wisdom and empathy if we allow them to. They are the experiences that have shaped us, often in ways that external achievements never could. The key to transforming these scars is to stop regretting the past and instead to integrate these experiences into our present understanding. When we acknowledge the pain but focus on the wisdom gained, we shift from victimhood to empowerment. We learn that we are not defined by the wound, but by our response to it. This new perspective is crucial for navigating the inevitable trials ahead, for it is in the crucible of adversity that true inner fortitude is revealed. Adversity is not just an unfortunate event, it is a crucible. It is the fire of adversity that burns away the dross of complacency and reveals the unyielding metal of our character. The Stoics didn't shy away from hardship, they actively sought to understand its purpose. They viewed it as a necessary teacher, a demanding instructor that strips away our illusions and forces us to confront our true capabilities. Without the resistance that adversity provides, our strength remains untested, our virtues dormant, and our inner citadel underdeveloped. Imagine a blacksmith working with raw iron. He plunges the hot metal into water, creating steam and a harsh hiss. This quenching process, though violent, hardens the metal, making it capable of holding a sharp edge or withstanding great force. Adversity functions in a similar way for the human spirit. It tests our principles, challenges our assumptions, and reveals our latent strengths. It's in these moments of intense pressure that we discover reserves of courage, patience, and ingenuity we never knew we possessed. This fiery trial is often viewed with dread as something to be avoided at all costs. We crave a smooth, comfortable existence, believing that ease equates to happiness. But the Stoics understood a fundamental truth about human development. Predictable comfort rarely leads to profound growth. It is the friction, the struggle, the very heat of the adversarial fire that truly tempers us, preparing us for the challenges that lie ahead. And this understanding makes the false promise of ease seem like a dangerous trap. We live in a culture that often glorifies ease, comfort, and avoidance of discomfort. From convenient technologies to instant gratification, we are bombarded with messages suggesting that life should be smooth, effortless, and free from struggle. This false promise of ease is a pervasive illusion that can lead us astray, making us weak and unprepared for the inevitable challenges of life. When we consistently opt for the path of least resistance, we deprive ourselves of the very experiences that build character, resilience, and genuine contentment. Consider a muscle that is never exercised. It atrophies, becoming weak and incapable. In the same way, when we constantly seek to avoid any form of discomfort, be it physical, emotional, or mental, our inner strength deteriorates. We become less capable of handling stress, less able to adapt to change, and more prone to anxiety when faced with inevitable difficulties. The illusion is that ease will bring lasting happiness, but in reality, it often breeds fragility and a shallow existence. The Stoics, in contrast, recognized that true fulfillment comes not from the absence of struggle, but from the mastery of it. They understood that discomfort, when approached with the right mindset, is a powerful catalyst for growth. This is why they championed the discipline of discomfort, a deliberate practice of embracing unpleasantness to build inner fortitude. This deliberate engagement with discomfort is precisely what allows us to thrive rather than merely survive when life inevitably presents its true challenges. The discipline of discomfort is a cornerstone of Stoic practice, a deliberate and intentional engagement with things we naturally tend to avoid. It's not about masochism, but about building resilience and reducing our dependence on external comforts. This practice can involve anything from taking a cold shower to fasting for a day to deliberately taking on a challenging task that pushes your limits. The aim is to prove to yourself that you can endure and even thrive in situations that you previously deemed unbearable. When we consistently avoid discomfort, we grant it an outsized power over our minds. We become enslaved by our preferences and aversions. By voluntarily exposing ourselves to mild forms of hardship, we shrink the perceived size of these challenges. We learn that the suffering we anticipate is often far worse than the actual experience. This practice erodes the fear of discomfort itself, a fear that can paralyze us and prevent us from pursuing our goals or living authentically. Each time you choose the harder, more uncomfortable path willingly, whether it's speaking up when it's easier to stay silent or enduring a chilly morning swim, you are strengthening your will and your character. You are demonstrating to yourself that you are not a slave to your sensations or your immediate desires. This deliberate discomfort is a powerful training ground, a way to prepare yourself for greater challenges and to deepen your appreciation for the comforts you do have by truly understanding the contrast. This leads us directly to embracing the unpleasant, not as something to be endured, but as an essential part of a robust inner life. To truly build an unshakable inner life, we must move beyond simply tolerating discomfort and actively learn to embrace the unpleasant. This isn't about seeking out unnecessary suffering, but about recognizing that many of the things we instinctively recoil from are actually valuable for our growth. Whether it's a difficult conversation, a demanding physical task, or a period of solitude, these unpleasant experiences are often where the most profound lessons and the most significant personal development occur. Imagine a chef who only cooks with the blandest ingredients. Their food would be entirely uninspiring. Similarly, a life lived solely in pursuit of pleasant sensations, avoiding anything remotely disagreeable, will be a life lacking in depth and true fulfillment. By embracing the unpleasant, we expand our capacity to handle life's inherent difficulties. We become less brittle, less easily thrown off balance when things don't go our way. We learn to find a sense of purpose and even satisfaction in the struggle itself. This embrace of the unpleasant is a radical act of self-mastery. It's a declaration of independence from the tyranny of fleeting pleasures and a conscious choice to prioritize long-term growth and virtue. It requires a shift in perspective, viewing difficult moments not as punishments, but as divine opportunities. This mindset is the very essence of the training undertaken by those who wish to excel, the athletes of the mind and spirit, which we will explore in the next section. The Stoic philosopher is like an athlete, but their training arena is the mind, and the battlefield is life itself. This Stoic athlete's training is a continuous process of preparation and practice designed to build mental and emotional fortitude. Just as a physical athlete rigorously trains their body, the Stoic rigorously trains their mind through specific disciplines. This involves mental exercises, habit formation, and a conscious effort to confront challenges head-on, rather than shying away from them. One key aspect of this training is voluntary hardship. As we've discussed, deliberately embracing discomfort, a cold plunge, a simple meal, a night without modern distractions, conditions the mind to be less dependent on external comforts and more resilient to deprivation. Another critical exercise is negative visualization, which we'll delve into more deeply later. This involves contemplating the loss of things we hold dear, not to induce despair, but to foster gratitude and prepare ourselves for eventual loss. The Stoic athlete understands that the game of life is unpredictable. They don't train hoping for victory or fearing defeat. They train to perform at their best regardless of the outcome. Their primary focus is on their effort, their intent, and their character, elements entirely within their control. This rigorous, ongoing training equips them to face any situation with equanimity. But what lies at the root of our resistance to this training, what ultimately holds us back from embracing such a disciplined approach to life? It is often rooted in our deepest fears, particularly the fear of what we truly aren't prepared for. Beneath the surface of our everyday anxieties, worrying about a deadline, a social faux pas, or a minor inconvenience, lies a deeper, more primal fear. This is the fear of what we are truly unprepared for, the fear of the unknown, and the fear of confronting our own perceived inadequacies. We often mask these deeper fears with more manageable, superficial worries. This is why we might obsess over a minor mistake at work, when the real root might be a fear of professional failure or a lack of self-confidence in our abilities. The Stoics recognized that many of our fears are rooted in our attachment to external things. We fear losing our possessions because we equate them with our identity or security. We fear the disapproval of others because we have tied our self-worth to their opinions. We fear illness or death because we have not come to terms with our mortality and the impermanence of life. These fears are not just theoretical. They actively shape our decisions and limit our potential, creating a sense of unease even in moments of apparent calm. Understanding what you are truly afraid of is a crucial step in dismantling those fears. It requires honest introspection and a willingness to look at the uncomfortable truths about your attachments and vulnerabilities. This process inherently involves confronting the comforting illusion of safety that we so desperately cling to, a sense of security that, as we shall see, is far more precarious than we imagine. Our innate human desire for safety is powerful, driving us to seek security in possessions, relationships, and predictable routines. We build our lives around the assumption that we can create a shield against the uncertainties and dangers of the world. This pursuit of an illusion of safety can make us risk-averse, resistant to change, and deeply distressed when our perceived security is threatened. We crave stability, but the universe operates on principles of flux and impermanence. Think of a bird's nest built on a fragile branch. It might feel safe within its confines, but the wind and the elements can easily disrupt it. Our own sense of safety, when it's rooted in external factors, a stable job, a loving partner, a secure home, is similarly vulnerable. These things can change, disappear, or be taken away in an instant. When we rely on them as our primary source of security, we are essentially placing our peace of mind in the hands of fortune. The Stoics understood that true safety is not found in the absence of danger, but in the inner strength to face it. It is a state of being that is independent of external circumstances. This profound shift in perspective requires us to question our attachments and reevaluate what truly provides security. It often leads to practices that seem counterintuitive, like deliberately embracing a form of scarcity, a concept we explore next as voluntary poverty of spirit. In contrast to our modern obsession with accumulation, the Stoics recommended a practice of voluntary poverty of spirit. This doesn't mean literally giving away all your possessions, although that might be a consequence for some. Instead, it's a mental and emotional detachment from the idea that we need more to be happy or secure. It's about consciously choosing to live with less, to simplify our lives, and to find contentment not in abundance, but in sufficiency. This practice trains us to value the essential and to recognize that our happiness is not dependent on external wealth. When we embrace voluntary poverty of spirit, we become less susceptible to the anxieties of loss and the pressures of acquisition. We realize that many of the things we strive for are merely desires, not necessities. The constant pursuit of more creates a void that can never be filled. By consciously stepping back from this cycle, we begin to appreciate what we already have and to acknowledge that true richness lies not in accumulation, but in a state of inner contentment. This practice cultivates a powerful sense of freedom. When you realize you don't need the latest gadget, the fanciest car, or the most opulent lifestyle to be happy, you regain control over your desires. It's a way of inoculating yourself against the consumerist pressures of modern society. This detachment from material goods directly leads to a deeper understanding of what happens when we sever our ties to possessions and cease to allow them mastery over us. Our possessions, while seemingly inert, can exert a powerful hold over our minds and emotions. We often define ourselves by what we own, and the thought of losing them can trigger profound anxiety. The Stoic practice of detachment from possessions is not about rejecting material goods outright, but about realizing that they are simply tools or transient conveniences, not intrinsic parts of our identity or sources of lasting happiness. True ownership, the Stoics argued, lies only in our character and our actions. When we become overly attached to our possessions, we subject ourselves to the whims of fortune. A house can burn down, a car can be stolen, an investment can vanish. If our sense of self is too deeply intertwined with these external things, their loss can feel like a personal catastrophe. Detachment means recognizing the impermanent nature of all material things. It means using them, enjoying them, but not allowing them to dictate our emotional state or our sense of worth. This detachment is liberating. It frees us from the constant worry of acquisition and loss. It allows us to appreciate what we have without clinging to it. It also makes us more generous as we are less possessive. By practicing this detachment, we begin to understand the subtle ways in which we enslave ourselves to the future, particularly through a practice that prepares us for the inevitable sorrows waiting there. We often live in anticipation of future calamities, a state the Stoics called the danger of future sorrows. This involves spending our present moments consumed by worry and speculation about what might go wrong. We imagine worst-case scenarios, predict failures, and preemptively grieve losses that may never occur. This mental habit is a profound thief of our present joy and peace, robbing us of the only time we truly have, right now. It's like constantly living in a state of self-imposed emergency preparedness for an event that may never materialize. The mind, when left unchecked, can spin elaborate narratives of woe. We might worry about our health, our finances, our relationships, or the state of the world, endlessly replaying potential negative outcomes. This constant projection into a negative future blinds us to the present beauty and the current blessings in our lives. It creates a perpetual state of low-grade anxiety that poisons our well-being, making us miserable even when everything is objectively going well. This habit is so pervasive that it requires a deliberate counter-practice. The Stoics offered a powerful tool to combat this tendency, premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. By consciously contemplating potential future misfortunes, we can paradoxically inoculate ourselves against their shock and distress when or if they actually occur. This structured preparation is not about inviting disaster, but about building mental resilience and regaining control over our thoughts, allowing us to face inevitable or even imagined hardships with a calmer, more prepared mind. Premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils, is a powerful Stoic technique designed not to invite despair, but to inoculate ourselves against the shock and distress of future misfortunes. It involves consciously and deliberately imagining the worst possible outcomes for situations we care about. This isn't about pessimism, it's about realistic preparation and building mental resilience by confronting our fears in a controlled environment. By mentally rehearsing scenarios of loss, failure, or hardship, we strip them of their terrifying power. Imagine preparing for a storm by boarding up windows and securing loose objects. You're not causing the storm, but you're making its impact less damaging. Similarly, by visualizing the loss of a loved one, a significant financial setback, or a career failure, you are mentally boarding up the windows of your emotional defenses. When these events, or similar ones, eventually occur, the raw shock will be less intense because you have already, in some measure, walked through that emotional landscape. This practice helps to diminish our emotional attachment to specific outcomes. If you've already contemplated losing your job, the news of a layoff, while still painful, won't shatter your sense of self. It allows you to see that you can endure, that your core being is not dependent on external circumstances. This deliberate confrontation with potential pain is a vital step in building an unshakable character, and it leads directly to understanding how the anticipation itself can be a potent weapon. The shock of anticipation is the intense emotional reaction we experience when something we have dreaded or feared finally comes to pass. It's the moment when the imagined horror becomes a tangible reality, and we are often overwhelmed by its impact. Premeditatio malorum aims to mitigate this shock by allowing us to confront these potential evils in our minds before they happen. By engaging in this practice, we are not passively waiting for suffering, but actively preparing ourselves to meet it with greater equanimity. When we consistently visualize worst-case scenarios, we begin to realize that our initial fears were often exaggerated. We learn that we possess inner resources to cope with difficulties. This mental rehearsal helps to normalize the idea of hardship, making it less of a terrifying unknown. The sting of disappointment or loss can still be present, but the paralyzing shock that often accompanies it is significantly reduced. We are less likely to be thrown into a state of utter despair because we have already, in a sense, experienced the emotional fallout. This practice cultivates a profound sense of gratitude for the present moment, as we recognize that our current situation might be far better than the scenarios we've contemplated for the future. It teaches us to appreciate what we have now, rather than constantly agonizing over what we might lose later. This preparation is not merely a mental exercise, it translates into practical readiness for the inevitable difficulties life presents, transforming passive dread into active preparedness. The Stoic approach to life is fundamentally pragmatic. It's not enough to merely think differently, one must also act differently. This is where practical preparation for pain comes into play. It's about translating the insights gained from premeditatio malorum and other mental exercises into concrete actions that build resilience and equip us to face hardship effectively. This preparation solidifies our inner strength, moving it from theoretical understanding to lived experience. This might involve consciously choosing to forgo certain comforts for a period as a way to test our ability to cope without them. It could mean practicing simple living, reducing our dependence on technology, or setting aside time for difficult conversations we've been avoiding. These are not acts of self-punishment, but deliberate exercises designed to strengthen our will and our capacity to endure. By actively engaging in these practices, we are essentially inoculating ourselves against future suffering by reducing our dependence on external comforts and our sensitivity to minor inconveniences. The goal is not to become immune to pain, as that is neither possible nor desirable. Instead, it is to develop the inner resources to face pain with courage, reason, and equanimity. This practical preparation makes us less susceptible to being overwhelmed by life's inevitable knocks. It builds a deep, quiet confidence that we can handle whatever comes our way, and it serves as a direct application of the principles of negative visualization, allowing us to truly grasp its power. Negative visualization, or premeditatio malorum, is a Stoic technique that, when used correctly, is not meant to promote misery, but to cultivate resilience and gratitude. The core idea is to consciously contemplate the potential loss of things you currently possess and value: your health, your loved ones, your job, your possessions. The key is how you use this visualization. It's not about dwelling in despair, but about performing a mental rehearsal that ultimately strengthens your appreciation for the present and prepares you for future loss. Begin by identifying something you value. It could be something simple, like your morning coffee, or something profound, like the well-being of your family. Then, systematically imagine its absence. What would life be like without it? How would you feel? What challenges would arise? Crucially, after exploring this absence, consciously shift your focus to gratitude for what you do have. Recognize that your current situation, even with its imperfections, is a blessing you might not always possess. This practice helps to dismantle our complacency. It reminds us that nothing is guaranteed. By acknowledging impermanence, we learn to appreciate the present moment more deeply. It reduces our fear of loss by demystifying it, showing us that we can imagine and even endure the absence of cherished things. This process directly addresses the root cause of much of our suffering: our insatiable desires and the constant wanting that keeps us perpetually dissatisfied, a void we will explore in the next section. Desire, in its most unbridled form, is a powerful engine of suffering. The Stoics identified it as a primary source of our unhappiness because it inherently involves wanting something we do not have. This constant yearning for more, for different, for better, keeps us trapped in a cycle of dissatisfaction. The dissolution of desire is not about eliminating all wishes or aspirations, but about distinguishing between healthy aspirations and unhealthy attachments. It's about understanding that our contentment should not be contingent on the fulfillment of every fleeting want. When we are driven by insatiable desire, we become slaves to external circumstances. Our happiness depends on acquiring the object of our desire, and when that acquisition fails, or when the desired object proves unsatisfying, we are plunged into disappointment. This is a perpetual state of yearning for a future happiness that is always just out of reach. The mind becomes consumed with what is missing, overlooking the abundance that may already be present. The dissolution of desire begins with recognizing the nature of our wants. Are they rooted in genuine need or in societal conditioning and fleeting emotional impulses? By questioning our desires and by consciously practicing contentment with what we have, we can gradually weaken their grip on our emotions. This leads us to confront the underlying emptiness that often fuels these desires, a void that remains insatiable if not addressed properly. According to Stoic philosophy, the root of all suffering lies not in external events themselves, but in our judgments and desires concerning those events. When we desire something that is not within our control, or when we aversely desire something to not happen, we create the conditions for suffering. This is because the universe does not conform to our individual wishes or expectations. The gap between what we want to happen and what actually happens is the breeding ground for pain, frustration, and disappointment. Think about the suffering caused by wanting a specific outcome for a project. If that outcome is not achieved and our happiness was tied to it, the disappointment can be immense. However, if our value was placed on the diligent effort and the learning process, the outcome, while perhaps not ideal, becomes less devastating. The suffering arises from the attachment to the outcome, the desire that it be a certain way, rather than a focus on virtuous action and acceptance. This understanding is revolutionary because it shifts the locus of control for our happiness from the external world to our internal mindset. It means that even in the face of adversity, we have the power to influence our level of suffering by managing our desires and our judgments. By diligently working to dissolve unhealthy desires, we begin to starve the very source of our misery, leading us to explore the profound emptiness that often drives this relentless wanting. What happens when we consistently chase after desires, only to find that fulfillment is fleeting? We often discover an insatiable void within. This void is the feeling of emptiness, of missing something essential that no amount of external acquisition or pleasure can truly fill. It's the realization that the latest purchase, the latest promotion, or the latest fleeting joy provides only temporary respite, and soon the yearning returns. We are programmed to seek satisfaction, but our attempts to fill this void with external things are fundamentally misguided. This void is not necessarily a negative thing. It can be a powerful signal, a prompt to look beyond the superficial and to seek a deeper, more enduring source of meaning and contentment. The problem arises when we misinterpret this void, believing it can be filled by more possessions, more experiences, or more affirmation from others. This leads us down a never-ending path of consumption and striving, a treadmill of wanting that ultimately leads to exhaustion and dissatisfaction. Recognizing this insatiable void is the first step toward finding true contentment. It prompts us to question the very nature of our desires and to explore what truly nourishes the spirit. This is where we begin to see how the constant trap of wanting more can keep us from experiencing the profound power of having enough. The human mind has a remarkable capacity for adaptation. What once seemed like a luxury quickly becomes a perceived necessity, forever fueling the trap of wanting more. This is the cycle where, upon achieving a desired goal, our standards recalibrate and we immediately begin desiring something else. The new car becomes ordinary, the promotion loses its thrill, and the once coveted item becomes just another stepping stone to the next object of desire. This relentless progression prevents us from ever truly settling into a state of contentment. This trap is particularly insidious in modern society, where consumerism and constant novelty relentlessly bombard us with messages of inadequacy and the promise of happiness through acquisition. We are made to feel that what we have is never enough, and that our worth is tied to our ability to constantly upgrade and expand our material possessions or our life experiences. This constant craving keeps us in a state of perpetual dissatisfaction, always reaching for a horizon that recedes as we approach it. Breaking free from this trap requires a conscious effort to appreciate what we have, to find joy in sufficiency, and to understand that true fulfillment does not lie in endless accumulation. It is in this understanding that we begin to see the power of a different approach, contentment as a weapon, a tool that can defend us against the relentless onslaught of wanting. In a world that constantly urges us to want more, contentment can seem like a passive or even weak stance. However, the Stoics recognized it as a powerful weapon. Contentment in this context is not about apathy or resignation, but about a rational and virtuous appreciation of one's present circumstances. It is the ability to find satisfaction and peace with what one has, independent of external validation or the acquisition of more. This inner state is a formidable defense against the anxieties and dissatisfactions that plague those who are constantly chasing the next big thing. When you cultivate contentment, you become less susceptible to manipulation. Advertisers, social pressures, and the envy of others lose their power to disturb your peace. You are no longer driven by the need to keep up or to acquire things for the sake of status or fleeting pleasure. Instead, your focus shifts to what truly matters, to your character, your relationships, and your inner growth. This is a state of profound strength, as your well-being is no longer dependent on the fluctuating external world. This weapon of contentment is forged through consistent practice, by deliberately acknowledging and appreciating the good in our lives, no matter how small. It's a conscious decision to resist the siren call of more and to embrace the abundance of enough, a concept we will explore next, understanding its profound impact on our freedom. The realization of enough is a profound turning point in the pursuit of tranquility. It's the moment when we understand that our happiness is not dependent on endless acquisition or reaching some arbitrary peak of success. It is the quiet confidence that what we have in this moment is sufficient. This is not about settling for less than our potential, but about recognizing that true fulfillment comes from an inner state, not from an ever-expanding external accumulation. The power of enough lies in its ability to liberate us from the relentless treadmill of wanting. When we grasp the concept of enough, the external pressures of society lose their grip. We are no longer compelled to chase trends, to compare ourselves to others, or to feel inadequate because we don't possess the latest or the biggest. This peace of mind that comes with recognizing enough is far more valuable than any material possession. It allows us to direct our energy towards things that truly matter, our relationships, our personal growth, and contributing to the well-being of others. This understanding is a direct antidote to the anxieties of modern life. It allows us to reclaim our attention from the constant noise and distractions that vie for our focus, a topic we will explore next, recognizing how these distractions serve as silent killers of our peace of mind. Our modern world is a symphony of constant stimulation, a relentless barrage of notifications, entertainment, and information that vies for our attention. These modern distractions are not merely time wasters. They are silent killers of our focus, our peace of mind, and our ability to connect with ourselves and the world around us. Social media feeds, endless streaming services, constant news cycles, and an ever-present digital hum create an environment where deep thought and genuine presence are increasingly difficult to achieve. These distractions are designed to be addictive, preying on our natural inclination towards novelty and instant gratification. Each notification, each new piece of content, provides a small dopamine hit, reinforcing the behavior of constant engagement. This fragmented attention makes it challenging to engage in meaningful work, to cultivate deep relationships, or even to simply enjoy a moment of quiet reflection. Our minds become scattered, our ability to concentrate erodes, and our engagement with reality becomes superficial. The consequence of this constant distraction is a pervasive sense of unease and a feeling of being perpetually busy yet unproductive. We are always connected, yet often deeply disconnected from ourselves and each other. This feast of endless noise is not merely an inconvenience, it is a significant barrier to inner peace, and escaping it requires a conscious and deliberate effort to reclaim our most precious resource. Our attention, the feast of endless noise, is a powerful metaphor for the overwhelming sensory and informational overload of contemporary life. It describes a state where our minds are constantly bombarded by a cacophony of sounds, images, and data, leaving little room for quiet contemplation or genuine presence. This feast is perpetually served, with new plates of content and stimulation constantly being added, making it difficult to ever truly step away and digest what we've consumed. This constant influx of stimuli keeps us in a state of constant readiness, but not for anything truly meaningful. We are alert to the ping of a notification, the scroll of a feed, the next headline, but often oblivious to the subtle cues of our own bodies, the quiet beauty of our surroundings, or the deeper needs of our own spirit. Our minds become accustomed to this high-frequency input, making stillness feel uncomfortable, even alien. The problem with this feast is that it is ultimately unfulfilling. Like overeating bland food, it satisfies an immediate craving but leaves us feeling bloated and depleted. We are constantly consuming but rarely nourished. Escaping this perpetual banquet requires a conscious decision to turn off the noise and to seek out the rarer, more nourishing experience of quiet and focus, an experience that can lead us out of this gilded cage of distractions. We often find ourselves trapped in a gilded cage, a life that may appear comfortable and appealing on the surface, but which restricts our true freedom and potential. This cage is constructed from the bars of modern distractions, the comforting routine of constant stimulation, and the fear of what lies beyond the familiar hum of digital noise. We have access to endless entertainment, information, and connection, yet this very abundance can paradoxically lead to a profound sense of confinement, leaving us feeling disconnected from ourselves and from true meaning. The allure of the cage is strong. It promises constant distraction, immediate gratification, and a perpetual escape from boredom. But while it may protect us from the discomfort of stillness, it also shields us from the profound insights and opportunities for growth that emerge from quiet reflection and focused attention. We become accustomed to the bars, mistaking the glittering facade for genuine freedom. To escape this gilded cage, we must acknowledge its existence and the subtle ways it has become our prison. This requires a conscious decision to seek out silence, to disconnect from the constant hum of technology, and to re-engage with the richness of direct experience. It is in this intentional disengagement from the noise that we can begin to reclaim our most valuable asset, our attention, and use it to build a life of purpose and presence. In an age of constant digital bombardment, reclaiming your attention is one of the most radical and empowering acts you can undertake. Attention is not passively received, it is actively directed. Modern life constantly seeks to hijack this precious resource for commercial gain or to keep us passively entertained. By consciously choosing where and how to direct your attention, you regain a fundamental level of control over your own mind and your experience of reality. This is an act of rebellion against the commodification of your focus. This reclaiming involves deliberate practices. It means setting boundaries around technology use, designating times for deep work or focused reflection, and actively choosing to engage with the world directly rather than through a screen. It requires recognizing that every moment you spend passively consuming content is a moment you are not actively choosing to engage with something meaningful, whether that's a personal goal, a skill development, or a connection with a loved one. By reclaiming your attention, you gain the ability to engage more deeply with your life. You can focus on tasks that truly matter, build stronger relationships, and experience the world with greater clarity and presence. This deliberate redirection of focus is the first step towards mastering the art of being present, a skill that allows us to truly inhabit our lives. The art of being present is the practice of fully inhabiting the current moment without being unduly distracted by the past or anxious about the future. In a world that constantly pulls us in different directions, cultivating presence is a radical act of self-mastery. It means bringing your full awareness to whatever you are doing, wherever you are, and whoever you are with. This doesn't mean ignoring lessons from the past or planning for the future, but rather grounding your experience in the richness of the now. When you are truly present, your interactions become deeper, your experiences more vivid, and your sense of peace more profound. You are not mentally rehashing an argument or worrying about a future meeting. You are fully engaged in the conversation, the meal, or the task at hand. This focused engagement allows you to appreciate the nuances of life that are often missed when our minds are elsewhere. It is through this sustained presence that we begin to notice something profound about the persistence of our own identity. The constant practice of being present is what gradually allows us to notice the subtle, yet significant, shift in our sense of self. This is not a sudden transformation, but a gradual fading echo of the ego, the persistent sense of I that has long dominated our inner landscape. As we delve deeper into Stoic practices, cultivating presence, focusing on virtue, and accepting what we cannot control, we begin to observe a subtle but profound shift in our sense of self. The persistent, clamoring echo of I, the ego-driven narrative that has defined our existence, starts to soften. It's not that the self disappears entirely, but its grip loosens. This fading echo is a sign that we are moving beyond a purely self-centered perspective toward a more expansive understanding of our place in the world. This fading of the ego doesn't happen through forceful suppression, but through a natural consequence of living according to Stoic principles. When our focus shifts from personal gratification and self-preservation to virtuous action and service to others, the self-centered narrative naturally recedes. We become less preoccupied with our own thoughts, feelings, and needs, and more attuned to the reality around us. This process is often unsettling because our ego is so deeply ingrained. The ego is a powerful construct. It's the storyteller of our lives, the self-appointed protagonist of every event. It fiercely defends its territory, and its dissolution can feel like a loss. But understanding the true nature of ego, recognizing it as a construct rather than our ultimate reality, is essential for unlocking genuine freedom and aligning ourselves with a larger, more universal order. Ego, it's a word we hear often, but its true nature, especially as the grand deceiver of the Stoics, is often misunderstood. Your ego is not your true self. It is the constructed identity, the collection of beliefs, memories, desires, and defense mechanisms that you use to navigate the world and to create a sense of separate, individual existence. It's the internal narrator that constantly tells you who you are, what you deserve, and how you should feel. And its greatest trick is convincing you that it is you. The ego thrives on comparison, on seeking validation, and on maintaining a sense of superiority or specialness. It is constantly evaluating, judging, and strategizing to protect its perceived status and to fulfill its desires. This drive for self-preservation and self-enhancement, while seemingly natural, is the root of much of our suffering. It leads us to ego-driven actions, to jealousy, to defensiveness, and to a perpetual dissatisfaction because the ego can never be truly satisfied. It always needs more proof of its existence and importance. When we begin to practice Stoicism, we start to question the ego's narratives. We see its manipulations, its fears, and its desperate attempts to maintain control. Recognizing the ego as a deceiver is not about eradicating it entirely. That's often an impossible and unnecessary task, but about understanding its role, seeing through its illusions, and refusing to let it dictate our actions or our peace of mind. This understanding is crucial when we confront the ego's desperate attempts to protect itself. When the ego senses that its dominance is threatened, it mounts a vigorous defense. This false self's defense is characterized by rationalization, projection, denial, and even outright aggression. If you try to challenge the ego's preconceived notions or its deeply held beliefs about itself, you will often encounter resistance. This is because the ego perceives such challenges not as opportunities for growth, but as existential threats to its very being. Consider someone who is deeply invested in a particular belief. If presented with compelling evidence that contradicts their belief, their ego might immediately jump to defend it, finding reasons to dismiss the evidence, attacking the source, or simply refusing to engage. This is not a reasoned response. It is the ego's frantic effort to maintain its internal consistency and avoid the discomfort of cognitive dissonance. It clings to its narrative, even when that narrative is inaccurate or damaging. Recognizing these defense mechanisms in ourselves is a vital part of self-awareness. It means observing when we become defensive, when we lash out, or when we stubbornly cling to an idea despite contradictory evidence. These are not signs of strength, but indicators that the ego is feeling threatened. By understanding these defenses, we can begin to disarm them, allowing for a more authentic and less reactive engagement with life, which leads to acknowledging the ultimate illusion it perpetuates: our own uniqueness. The ego often crafts a narrative of our own specialness, fostering an illusion of uniqueness. It convinces us that our struggles, our talents, our pains, and our insights are entirely singular, unlike anyone else's. While it's true that each individual experience is unique in its own way, the ego takes this to an extreme, creating a sense of isolation and an exaggerated self-importance. It's this fabricated distinctiveness that often fuels our vanity, our competitiveness, and our resistance to empathy. When we believe we are fundamentally different from everyone else, it becomes harder to connect with them on a deeper level. We might feel misunderstood, superior, or tragically alone. This illusion prevents us from seeing the common threads of the human experience, our shared vulnerabilities, our universal desires for love and belonging, and our collective struggles. It keeps us locked in a self-referential bubble, limiting our capacity for compassion and true connection. The Stoics, through their emphasis on universal reason and our shared humanity, aim to break down this illusion. They taught that by understanding our commonality, our interconnectedness, we can move beyond the ego's self-serving narratives. This realization allows us to see through the ego's attempts to maintain its perceived specialness, leading us to unmask its pretenses and ultimately to begin the process of relinquishing the self it has so carefully constructed. The journey of self-discovery, particularly through Stoic philosophy, involves the deliberate act of unmasking the pretender. The pretender is the ego, the false self that has been meticulously crafted over years, often presenting a facade of strength, knowledge, or virtue that doesn't reflect our deepest reality. Unmasking this pretender is not about destroying oneself, but about revealing the true self that lies beneath the layers of carefully constructed defenses and societal conditioning. It's about seeing the ego for what it is: a functional but ultimately illusory part of our psychological makeup. This unmasking process can be uncomfortable. It involves acknowledging the fears, insecurities, and motivations that the ego has worked so hard to conceal. It means admitting when we have acted out of pride, when we have sought validation, or when we have prioritized our own comfort over what is right. It's a courageous act of self-honesty, looking directly at the masks we wear and the roles we play. By seeing through the ego's deceits, we begin to dismantle its power. We stop being manipulated by its constant need for affirmation or its fear of inadequacy. This liberation from the ego's illusions is a crucial step towards a more authentic existence. It paves the way for the profound practice of relinquishing the self, not as an act of annihilation, but as an act of returning to a more fundamental, less defined state of being. The relinquishing of self is perhaps the most profound and transformative aspect of Stoic practice, a process that extends beyond mere ego reduction. It's about dissolving the rigid boundaries of the individual self and experiencing a deeper connection with something larger than oneself. This is not about self-annihilation, but about recognizing that the self we cling to, the ego-driven, separate entity, is an illusion. True freedom lies in letting go of this constricted sense of identity. When we relinquish the self, we move from a position of self-concern to one of universal concern. The worries and desires that once consumed us begin to seem less significant when viewed against the vastness of existence. This doesn't mean we cease to act or to care, but that our motivations shift. We act not out of a need to bolster the ego, but out of a sense of duty, reason, and a desire to live in harmony with the natural order. This relinquishing is a gradual process, often accompanied by moments of profound insight. It is the quiet understanding that our truest nature is not a solitary island, but an integral part of a greater whole. This realization can bring an incredible sense of peace and belonging, allowing us to see that even the mightiest emperors grapple with the same fundamental human condition, a burden Marcus Aurelius explored in his private reflections. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, left behind a collection of personal writings known as the Meditations. These are not meant for public consumption, but rather serve as his private inner monologue, a record of his struggles, his reflections, and his continuous efforts to live by Stoic principles. Reading his words feels like peering directly into the mind of a man grappling with immense power and responsibility, yet constantly striving for inner virtue and wisdom. He writes about his frustrations with difficult people, his awareness of his own mortality, and his unwavering commitment to reason. In these private reflections, we see the universal nature of human struggle, regardless of one's station in life. Even an emperor, with seemingly unlimited power, is subject to the same internal battles against anger, impatience, and the allure of vanity. Marcus uses his writings to remind himself of his duties, to reorient his perspective when he feels overwhelmed, and to reinforce the core tenets of Stoicism. He constantly asks himself, am I doing the right thing? Am I acting in accordance with nature? Am I conquering my own impulses? His words offer a powerful testament to the fact that Stoicism is not a detached, theoretical philosophy, but a living, breathing practice applied daily to the most challenging circumstances. He grapples with the weight of his position, understanding that true leadership is a profound responsibility, a burden he carries with a deep sense of duty and an awareness of his own impermanence. The Stoic emperor's burden is the immense responsibility that comes with wielding great power, coupled with the internal discipline required to wield it virtuously. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, understood this acutely. He was tasked with governing a vast empire, leading armies, and making decisions that affected millions of lives. Yet, his Stoic training compelled him to govern not from a place of personal ambition or ego, but from a foundation of reason, justice, and a deep understanding of his role. This burden is not about the external pressures of leadership, but the internal struggle to remain virtuous and rational amidst the temptations of power. The ego is at its strongest when it can influence the external world, and for an emperor, the opportunities are limitless. The Stoic emperor's challenge is to resist the corrupting influence of unchecked authority, to remember that he is a human being subject to the same natural laws as everyone else, and to prioritize the well-being of the state and its citizens above personal gain or comfort. Marcus Aurelius' writings reveal the constant effort required to maintain this balance. He reminds himself that his position does not exempt him from the principles of Stoicism, and that true leadership lies in service, not domination. This weighty responsibility, this awareness of his transient role, leads him to profound reflections on duty and the ephemeral nature of life itself. The contemplation of duty and mortality is a recurring theme in the writings of Marcus Aurelius, revealing the profound connection between our responsibilities and our awareness of life's transience. As an emperor, his duties were immense, administering justice, defending the empire, and ensuring the prosperity of his people. Yet, he recognized that these duties were temporary, performed by an individual who, like all humans, is destined to pass from this world. This awareness of mortality, rather than leading to despair, fueled his sense of purpose and his commitment to virtuous action. He understood that life is fleeting, our time here is limited, and our actions have consequences that extend beyond our own existence. This perspective sharpens the focus on what truly matters. If our time is finite, then how we spend it and how we conduct ourselves becomes infinitely important. For Marcus, duty was not a chore imposed from without, but an internal imperative, a way to align himself with the natural order and to live a life of purpose before his time ran out. This contemplation of mortality, far from being morbid, is deeply practical. It helps us to shed trivial concerns, to prioritize what is meaningful, and to approach our responsibilities with a sense of urgency and gratitude. It is this profound understanding of our small place within the grand scheme of things that leads us to marvel at the vastness of nature and our interconnectedness within it. When we contemplate the vastness of nature, from the infinite expanse of the cosmos to the intricate workings of a single cell, we are humbled and reminded of our own smallness. The sheer scale of the universe, with its billions of galaxies stretching across unfathomable distances, dwarfs any individual human concern. This perspective is not meant to diminish us, but to reframe our anxieties and our perceived importance within a much larger context. It is an immersion into a reality that operates on laws far grander than our own petty concerns. Our daily worries, a missed appointment, an awkward conversation, a fleeting material desire seem less significant when viewed against the backdrop of cosmic time and space. Nature operates according to its own grand designs, a constant unfolding of processes that have occurred for eons and will continue long after we are gone. This realization can be incredibly liberating, as it helps to dissolve the ego's inflated sense of self-importance and its desperate need for constant validation. The Stoics looked to nature as the ultimate teacher, a model of order, balance, and rational operation. By observing and understanding the natural world, they believed we could better understand our own place within it and learn to live in accordance with its principles. This deep appreciation for nature's immensity naturally leads us to consider our specific, humble position within its awe-inspiring grandeur. Recognizing our small place in the cosmos is a humbling but essential Stoic realization. We are not the center of the universe, nor are we the primary focus of its unfolding. We are, in fact, a tiny speck within an unimaginably vast and complex system. This understanding, far from fostering despair, can be a source of profound peace and liberation. It shifts our perspective away from self-centered concerns and towards an appreciation of the interconnectedness of all things. When we feel overwhelmed by personal problems, remembering our minuscule place in the grand scheme can provide much-needed perspective. The anxieties that seem insurmountable in our daily lives often shrink in significance when considered against the backdrop of cosmic time and space. This realization helps to deflate the ego's inflated sense of importance and its constant demand for special treatment. We are all part of the same grand design, experiencing a fleeting moment in the cosmic drama. This perspective encourages us to live more fully in the present moment, to appreciate the beauty around us, and to focus on contributing to the greater good, rather than solely on our own personal desires. It is this sense of being part of something larger that leads to the understanding of living in accordance with the way nature itself operates. The Stoic philosophy emphasizes the importance of living in accordance with nature. This doesn't simply mean respecting the environment, though that is a part of it. For the Stoics, it meant understanding and aligning oneself with the rational order that governs the universe, the underlying principles that dictate how things function. It means accepting things as they are, understanding that everything happens for a reason within this natural order and acting in a way that is harmonious with this universal logic. This concept involves two primary aspects: understanding our own human nature and understanding the nature of the universe. As humans, our nature is to be rational, social beings. Living in accordance with this means using our reason to guide our actions and living cooperatively with our fellow humans. Understanding the nature of the universe means recognizing its inherent order, its impermanence, and the interconnectedness of all things. When we strive to live in accordance with nature, we reduce internal conflict. We stop fighting against reality and start working with it. This alignment brings a sense of peace and purpose as we understand our role within the grander scheme. This understanding is deeply connected to the concept of the universe being guided by a universal reason, a concept we will explore further as it forms the very fabric of existence. At the heart of Stoic philosophy lies the concept of universal reason, often referred to as the Logos. The Stoics believed that the universe is not a chaotic accident, but a rationally ordered system guided by an intelligent, all-pervading principle. This Logos is the inherent rationality and order that governs everything, from the movement of the stars to the smallest biological processes. It is the divine spark of reason that is present in all things and all beings. For humans, this universal reason manifests as our own capacity for rational thought and moral judgment. We are, in a sense, microcosms of the larger cosmic reason. By understanding and cultivating our own reason, we align ourselves with the underlying order of the universe. This means accepting that events unfold according to this rational design, even when they appear challenging or unfair from our limited perspective. To live in accordance with nature is to live in accordance with this Logos. It means accepting that what happens for a reason within this grand, rational system. This acceptance doesn't mean passivity, but a conscious participation in the unfolding of events, guided by our own inherent capacity for reason. This alignment of our will with the universal order is the key to true tranquility and a life of meaning. The Stoic goal of aligning your will is about harmonizing our personal desires and intentions with the rational order of the universe, the Logos. It's not about forcing our will upon the world, but about understanding and accepting the unfolding of events as part of a larger, rational plan. When our will is aligned, we stop resisting reality and start collaborating with it. This alignment is the source of true freedom and inner peace. Think of a river flowing to the sea. The water doesn't fight the banks or try to change course against the terrain. It flows with the path laid out before it. Similarly, when we align our will, we accept the circumstances of our lives as they are, the successes and the setbacks, the joys and the sorrows, and we focus on acting virtuously within those circumstances. Our energy is not wasted in futile resistance, but channeled into purposeful action guided by reason. This alignment is achieved through understanding what is within our control and what is not, and by focusing our efforts solely on our own thoughts, judgments, and actions. It means accepting that outcomes are often beyond our influence, but our response to those outcomes is entirely within our power. This acceptance of what we cannot control is the foundation for a deep and abiding sense of peace, a letting go that is not weakness, but profound strength, a strength Seneca illustrates in his teachings on anger. Letting go is often perceived as a concession, a sign of defeat, yet the Stoics taught that it is, in fact, a subtle art of profound strength. It's the skill of releasing our attachment to outcomes, to possessions, to opinions, and to our own ego-driven narratives. It's not about apathy, but about recognizing that clinging to things that are ultimately impermanent or beyond our control is a primary source of suffering. This art is not a one-time event, but a continuous practice of releasing our grip. When we learn to let go, we free ourselves from the anxieties of loss and the fear of failure. We stop trying to control the uncontrollable and focus our energy on what truly matters, our character, our intentions, and our actions. It's like decluttering a room. Letting go of unnecessary possessions allows us to better appreciate and utilize what remains. In the same way, letting go of unhealthy attachments allows us to live more fully in the present, with greater clarity and peace. This practice requires courage and self-awareness. It means questioning our deep-seated need for control and acknowledging that true freedom comes not from possessing everything, but from needing very little. This journey of letting go also involves understanding the destructive force of negative emotions, particularly the corrosive effect of rage, a topic Seneca so eloquently addressed in his wisdom. Seneca, another towering figure of Stoicism, dedicated significant attention to the destructive nature of anger and rage. In his writings, he eloquently describes anger not as a fleeting emotion, but as a temporary madness, a frenzy that clouds judgment, distorts perception, and leads to irrational and often harmful actions. His wisdom on rage serves as a potent warning against allowing this powerful emotion to dictate our behavior. He argued that while some level of righteous indignation might be understandable, unchecked rage is a dangerous poison to the soul. Seneca meticulously analyzes the physiological and psychological effects of anger. He describes how it can elevate the pulse, cloud the mind, and lead one to say and do things they later deeply regret. He emphasizes that anger is often a response to perceived injustices or slights, but that our interpretation of these events is what truly fuels the fire. The external event is rarely the sole cause. It is our judgment of the event that ignites our fury. He saw it as inherently irrational, a failure of reason to control our baser impulses. This philosophical stance is not about suppressing emotions, but about understanding their origins and mastering their expression. By recognizing anger for what it is, a destructive force often rooted in flawed judgments, we can begin to disarm its power and reclaim our inner calm. This wisdom directly leads us to understand the corrosive nature of this emotion and how to effectively reclaim our peace from its grip. Anger, especially when allowed to fester and grow into rage, acts as a potent poison. It doesn't just affect our own mood, it contaminates our relationships, clouds our judgment, and erodes our well-being from the inside out. Unlike a quick burst of irritation, chronic anger can become a habitual response, a default setting that colors our perception of the world. We begin to see slights where none exist, to interpret neutral events as hostile, and to damage connections with those we claim to care about. This poison can be particularly insidious because it often masquerades as a form of justice or strength. We might feel justified in our anger, believing it's a righteous response to wrongdoing. However, even when the initial cause is valid, the prolonged indulgence in anger rarely leads to constructive solutions. Instead, it perpetuates a cycle of negativity, making us less effective, less empathetic, and ultimately less happy. The mental energy consumed by anger is energy stolen from more productive and fulfilling pursuits. Reclaiming our peace from the clutches of anger requires a conscious effort to understand its roots and to employ strategies for its management. It's not about becoming immune to frustration, but about developing the capacity to process it without letting it consume us. This leads us to the vital practice of reclaiming our calm, a state that allows us to respond to challenges rather than simply reacting to them. Reclaiming your calm is an essential Stoic practice, a deliberate act of returning to a state of inner peace and rational equanimity, even in the face of provocation. It means not allowing external events or the emotions they trigger to derail your inner stability. This is not a passive state of apathy, but an active cultivation of a resilient inner disposition. When we reclaim our calm, we regain control over our thoughts and actions, allowing us to respond to situations with clarity, wisdom, and effectiveness, rather than being ruled by reactive emotions. This reclaiming involves a conscious awareness of your emotional state. It means recognizing the early signs of rising anger or agitation, and then actively employing techniques to diffuse those feelings. This could involve deep breathing exercises, short periods of mindfulness, or mentally reaffirming one's commitment to reason and virtue. It's about creating a buffer between an external stimulus and your internal response, giving yourself the space to choose a more constructive reaction. By consistently practicing the reclamation of calm, we weaken the hold that external stressors have on us. We build a profound sense of inner resilience, knowing that even when challenged, we possess the inner tools to regain our equilibrium. This ability to maintain composure under pressure is a hallmark of Stoic strength, and it is directly linked to the development of a crucial virtue, the unseen power of patience. Patience is often seen as a passive virtue, a matter of simply waiting. However, the Stoics understood it as a form of active inner strength, an unseen power that allows us to endure trials, to understand complex situations, and to act with wisdom rather than haste. True patience is not about tolerating delay or discomfort out of resignation, but about maintaining a calm and rational mind while events unfold, trusting in the process and focusing on what you can influence. It's a deliberate choice to allow things to happen in their own time without unnecessary frustration. This power is unseen because it operates internally. You don't necessarily see a person's patience in their outward actions, but you see its effects in their steady demeanor, their thoughtful responses, and their ability to navigate difficult circumstances without buckling under pressure. It is the quiet resilience that allows us to tolerate setbacks, to learn from mistakes without immediate self-recrimination, and to approach complex problems with a clear and steady mind. Developing patience is crucial for all areas of life, especially in our interactions with others. It allows us to understand their motivations, to forgive their shortcomings, and to respond to conflict with de-escalation rather than escalation. This understanding of human behavior and the injustices we often perceive in it leads us to a critical point: the willingness to understand the motivations of others, even when their actions are difficult to bear. A key component of Stoic wisdom is the effort to cultivate empathy and understanding the motivations of others. When faced with actions we perceive as unjust, inconvenient, or even malicious, our initial reaction is often anger and judgment. However, the Stoics urged us to pause and consider that all individuals act based on their own perceptions, their own beliefs, and their own understanding of what serves their interests, however flawed that understanding might be. This doesn't excuse harmful behavior, but it helps us to respond with greater wisdom and less personal suffering. We rarely know the full story behind someone else's actions. They might be acting out of ignorance, fear, past trauma, or simply a different set of values than our own. When we assume the worst, we create unnecessary conflict and emotional turmoil for ourselves. By making an effort to understand their perspective, even if we don't agree with it, we can diffuse anger, foster compassion, and respond more effectively. This mental effort helps us to see that what appears as an injustice to us might be motivated by something entirely different from their point of view. This practice of seeking understanding is a powerful antidote to resentment, and it directly leads to questioning the very basis of our grievances, the injustice of expectation. When we expect others to behave in ways that align with our own worldview, we set ourselves up for disappointment. The injustice of expectation arises when we hold others to standards or behaviors that are not universally shared, or when we assume they should act in ways that align with our personal preferences. We expect people to be fair, to be grateful, to be rational, to be predictable. When they inevitably fall short of these personal benchmarks, we feel wronged, cheated, or disappointed. The injustice, however, often lies not in their actions, but in our rigid expectations. The Stoics understood that individuals act according to their own understanding and circumstances. To expect everyone to conform to our personal code of conduct is to misunderstand human nature and the diversity of human experience. It's like expecting a bird to swim like a fish. It's an unreasonable demand based on a misunderstanding of its nature. This constant setting of expectations that are not met is a primary driver of personal frustration and interpersonal conflict. By releasing rigid expectations, we free ourselves from a significant source of suffering. We learn to accept people as they are, while still holding ourselves to our own high standards of virtue. This acceptance allows us to engage with others more compassionately and less judgmentally, and it is the foundation for building a truly impenetrable inner self-command. Building impenetrable self-command is the ultimate goal of Stoic practice, a state where your inner world is so well fortified by reason, virtue, and acceptance that external circumstances can no longer shake your tranquility. It's about developing an unwavering internal discipline that governs your thoughts, emotions, and actions, regardless of what is happening around you. This self-command is not about suppressing your feelings, but about mastering them, ensuring that they serve your rational faculty rather than dictate your behavior. This mastery is built brick by brick through consistent practice of Stoic principles. Each time you choose reason over emotion, each time you act with virtue in the face of temptation, each time you accept what you cannot change, you strengthen your inner defenses. It's like a muscle being trained through repeated exertion. The more you exercise your self-command, the stronger and more resilient it becomes. An impenetrable self-command means you are no longer a slave to your impulses or the opinions of others. You are the master of your own inner kingdom. This state of being is the key to unlocking a profound sense of inner peace, a peace that is not dependent on the external world, but exists independently of it. It is the true realization of freedom, a freedom not of circumstance, but of the spirit. The master key to inner peace is not found in wealth, fame, or external circumstances, but in the consistent application of Stoic principles. It is the ability to maintain a state of rational calm and emotional equilibrium regardless of life's inevitable challenges. This key is built through understanding what is within our control, our thoughts, judgments, and actions, and focusing our energy exclusively there. When we cease to expend our mental and emotional energy on things beyond our influence, we unlock a reservoir of profound tranquility. This master key is accessed through practices like separating impressions from reality, accepting what we cannot change, and cultivating virtue above all else. It requires diligence, self-awareness, and a willingness to confront our own ingrained habits and beliefs. When we consistently apply these principles, we begin to see that disturbances arise not from events themselves, but from our interpretations of those events. By mastering our internal responses, we gain access to a peace that is impervious to external chaos. This unwavering inner peace is the truest form of freedom. It's a freedom that cannot be taken away by external forces, a liberation of the spirit that allows us to navigate life with grace and resilience. This freedom is not about having no constraints, but about being unconstrained internally, which leads us to explore its profound and ultimate meaning. The true meaning of freedom, as understood by the Stoics, is not the absence of external constraints or the ability to do whatever one desires. In fact, unchecked desires can be the greatest prison. True freedom, rather, is the liberation of the inner self from the tyranny of its own uncontrolled emotions, unexamined beliefs, and unhealthy attachments. It is the ability to govern oneself through reason and virtue, independent of the whims of fortune or the opinions of others. This is an internal freedom that no external force can bestow or revoke. A person might be physically imprisoned, but internally free if they have cultivated detachment and self-control. Conversely, someone who is outwardly free but enslaved by their passions, their addictions, or their fears is, in essence, not free at all. The Stoic seeks freedom from the internal disruptions that cause suffering, anger, fear, excessive desire, and regret. This freedom is found in aligning oneself with nature and reason. This realization that true freedom is an inner state radically reorients our priorities. It means that the pursuit of external liberation or power is less important than the cultivation of inner mastery. This focus on an internal state of being, unburdened by the chaos of passions, leads us to a state beyond conventional notions of good and evil, to the very foundation of what makes a life truly virtuous. The Stoic understanding of beyond good and evil challenges conventional morality. They propose that true good resides only in virtue itself, wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. Conversely, true evil resides only in vice. Everything else, including things like wealth, health, reputation, pain, and pleasure, are considered indifferents. They are not inherently good or bad, but can be used in a virtuous or unvirtuous way. This perspective liberates us from judging ourselves and others based on external outcomes, which are often beyond our control. When we understand that virtue is the sole good, our focus shifts from accumulating external goods or avoiding external bads to cultivating our character. A wealthy person living without virtue is not truly good, and a person experiencing hardship but acting with courage and justice is living a truly good life. This radical redefinition helps us to detach from outcomes and to focus on the quality of our intentions and actions. We are not defined by what happens to us, but by how we respond to it. This is the foundation upon which a life of true virtue is built. It's about having an internal compass that guides us, a reason that serves as our unwavering guide, leading us to understand the ultimate purpose of our existence. The foundation of virtue is the bedrock of Stoic philosophy and the ultimate goal of the Stoic path. Virtues like wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance are not merely desirable traits. They are seen as the only true goods. Everything else, health, wealth, reputation, pleasure, pain, is considered indifferent, meaning it has no inherent moral value. Your character, your choices, and your actions are what truly matter. This focus elevates the importance of how you are over what you have or what happens to you. Building this foundation means constantly examining your motives and your actions. Are you acting out of wisdom or impulse? Are you being just in your dealings with others, or are you motivated by self-interest? Do you exhibit courage when it's difficult, or do you succumb to fear? Are you temperate, exercising self-control, or are you driven by excessive desires? This rigorous self-examination is not about judgment, but about refinement, about continuously striving to embody these virtues in every aspect of your life. When virtue is your foundation, external events lose their power to define your worth or your happiness. You become resilient, principled, and ultimately truly free. This unwavering commitment to virtue is guided by reason, the most powerful tool we possess for navigating the complexities of life and discovering our true purpose. In the Stoic worldview, reason as your guide is paramount. It is our connection to the universal reason, logos, that pervades the cosmos. Our ability to think rationally, to analyze, to make judgments, and to understand cause and effect is what distinguishes us as human and allows us to live in accordance with nature. Reason is not just about logic. It is about discerning what is truly good virtue and what is indifferent, and about acting in a way that is consistent with that understanding. When we allow our emotions, fear, anger, desire, to dictate our actions, we deviate from the path of reason. These passions can lead us astray, causing us to make impulsive decisions, to harm ourselves or others, and to suffer unnecessarily. Reason, on the other hand, provides a steady hand, guiding us towards virtuous choices, even when they are difficult or uncomfortable. It allows us to see through illusions, to understand the true nature of things, and to act with integrity and purpose. By consistently prioritizing reason, we are not suppressing our emotions, but rather managing them. We are allowing our rational faculty to govern our emotional responses, ensuring that they serve our pursuit of virtue rather than undermining it. This disciplined use of reason helps us to understand our place and function within the larger tapestry of existence, and to ultimately discover the purpose of our lives. The purpose of existence, from a Stoic perspective, is not found in external achievements or the accumulation of wealth, but in living a virtuous life in accordance with nature and reason. It is about fulfilling our potential as rational and social beings. This means using our capacity for reason to understand the world, to act justly, to be courageous, and to exercise temperance. Our purpose is not externalized. It is found within our own character and our ability to live a life aligned with universal principles. This understanding liberates us from the anxiety of searching for some grand, external meaning. Instead, purpose is found in the daily practice of living well. Each moment presents an opportunity to act virtuously, to contribute to the greater good, and to hone our character. Our existence is purposeful when we are striving to be the best version of ourselves, contributing to the harmonious functioning of the whole, just as any part of nature serves its role. This focus on living a virtuous life inevitably leads us to confront one of humanity's most profound and universal fears, the fear of death. Understanding our purpose also helps us approach this final natural event with less dread and more acceptance. Confronting the fear of death is a central theme in Stoic philosophy. The Stoics viewed death not as an evil, but as a natural and inevitable part of life, an event entirely outside our control. To fear death is, in essence, to fear something that is beyond our power to influence. Seneca famously stated that it is not death that men fear, but the thought of death. This means our suffering often stems from our mental projection and anxiety about death, rather than death itself. By contemplating death regularly, as through premeditatio malorum, the Stoics aimed to demystify it and reduce its terrifying power. They argued that acknowledging our mortality is not morbid, but life-affirming. It encourages us to live more fully in the present, to prioritize what truly matters, and to act with purpose and virtue, knowing that our time is limited. Death, from this perspective, is simply the natural end of one phase of existence, part of the larger cycle. Accepting death as a natural process, rather than an evil to be avoided, frees us from a pervasive source of anxiety. It allows us to live more authentically and courageously, unburdened by the constant dread of our own finitude. This acceptance is an integral part of understanding and living in harmony with the natural cycle of life. The natural cycle of life, as viewed by the Stoics, encompasses birth, growth, decay, and death, a continuous process of transformation and renewal. Within this grand cycle, each stage is natural and necessary. Birth is followed by growth, growth by decline, and decline by death, which in turn makes way for new life. To struggle against this cycle, to try and halt its progress, is to fight against the very fabric of existence. Our role is to understand and accept our place within this unfolding process. This perspective is profoundly liberating because it removes the concept of death as an ultimate end or a punishment. It is simply a transition, a part of the grand design. When we recognize that everything is in flux, that nothing is permanent, we are less likely to cling desperately to what we have or to fear change. The resilience required to navigate this cycle is built by understanding our interconnectedness with others and how our actions ripple through their lives. This holistic view of life and death is key to developing a compassionate and understanding approach to our fellow human beings. It helps us to see that, regardless of our individual journeys, we are all part of the same unfolding story, bound together by experiences and shared humanity. Epictetus, having experienced the harsh realities of slavery and subsequent freedom, offered profound insights into our relationships with our fellow humans. He understood that while we cannot control the actions or opinions of others, we can control our own responses to them. He taught that it is not other people's actions that harm us, but our judgments about their actions. When someone wrongs us, it is our belief that they should not have wronged us that causes suffering. He emphasized that all human beings share a common nature, a spark of the divine logos. Therefore, when we mistreat or misunderstand others, we are, in a sense, acting against our own rational nature and against the natural order. While we cannot force others to be virtuous, we can strive to be virtuous ourselves in our interactions with them. This means responding to provocation with reason rather than rage, and understanding that their actions often stem from their own flawed perceptions, not necessarily a direct intention to harm us. This understanding fosters a sense of interconnectedness and compassion. It encourages us to see the common humanity in everyone, even those who act in ways we find difficult or offensive. This recognition of our shared bonds, both chosen and inherent, becomes the foundation for navigating the inevitable complexities of human relationships. There are certain connections in life that are fundamental, forming the bonds we cannot break. These are not necessarily our chosen friendships, but the inherent connections that tie us to humanity itself, our shared nature, our common vulnerabilities, and our interdependence. Epictetus, with his deep understanding of human nature, recognized that despite our individual differences and conflicts, we are all fundamentally bound together. These bonds are not forged by choice, but by existence itself. These universal bonds remind us that our well-being is intrinsically linked to the well-being of others. When we act unjustly or with cruelty towards another, we are not just impacting them, we are damaging the fabric of our shared existence and ultimately ourselves. Recognizing these unbreakable bonds encourages a sense of collective responsibility and fosters a spirit of empathy. It means understanding that the suffering of one is, in a sense, the suffering of all. This recognition is crucial for building a life of virtue and for navigating the inevitable challenges that arise in our interactions with others. It provides a framework for addressing difficult relationships, not with resentment, but with a deeper understanding of our shared human condition. This leads us to the practical application of this wisdom in navigating those complex dynamics. Navigating difficult relationships is a practical application of Stoic principles. When we encounter individuals whose actions or personalities create friction, our first instinct might be to withdraw, to resent, or to retaliate. However, the Stoic approach encourages us to face these challenges with reason, understanding, and a focus on what we can control. Our own reactions. It's about understanding that while we cannot change the other person, we can change how we perceive and interact with them. This involves employing empathy, as we've discussed, to try and understand their motivations without necessarily condoning their behavior. It means distinguishing between their actions and our interpretation of those actions. It also involves setting firm boundaries while maintaining inner composure. We can choose not to engage in arguments, to limit our exposure to toxic interactions, or to respond with calm detachment rather than emotional reactivity. The goal is not to eliminate conflict, but to manage it virtuously. This approach allows us to maintain our inner peace even when external relationships are challenging. It prevents us from being drawn into cycles of negativity and resentment, preserving our own well-being. This focus away from external conflict and towards internal strength highlights the weakness inherent in holding onto negativity. Resentment is a corrosive emotion, a lingering bitterness that attaches itself to past grievances. The Stoics recognized it as a weakness, a self-imposed burden that does more harm to the bearer than to the object of their resentment. When we hold on to resentment, we give the person or situation that caused us pain continued power over our emotional state. We allow the past to dictate our present, and we poison our own well-being with the toxin of unforgiveness. This weakness stems from a misunderstanding of control. We resent someone for a past action, believing they should have acted differently. However, their past actions are beyond our control now. Holding on to resentment is like trying to punish someone for something they did yesterday by refusing to enjoy today. It is a futile and self-destructive cycle. The Stoics taught that true strength lies in acknowledging the past, learning from it, and then consciously choosing to release the burden of unforgiven wrongs. By letting go of resentment, we reclaim our emotional freedom. We sever the invisible chains that bind us to past hurts and open ourselves up to more positive experiences and relationships. This act of releasing the past is a powerful form of self-preservation, a crucial step towards genuine forgiveness. Forgiveness as an act of self-preservation reframes the concept of pardoning others. The Stoics understood that true forgiveness is not about condoning harmful behavior or pretending that an offense did not occur. Instead, it is a deliberate choice to release the emotional burden of anger and resentment, primarily for one's own psychological and emotional well-being. Holding onto grudges is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It only harms you. When we refuse to forgive, we remain tethered to the past offense and the person who caused it. Our minds replay the hurt, our emotions churn, and our peace is disturbed. Forgiveness, in this sense, is an act of severing that tie. It is liberating ourselves from the emotional grip of another's actions. It allows us to reclaim our energy and focus on living positively in the present moment, unburdened by past hurts. This perspective encourages a pragmatic approach to interpersonal conflict. It is not about being a doormat, but about recognizing that peace of mind is a valuable commodity, and sometimes the most powerful way to achieve it is by choosing to let go of the desire for retribution or the sting of unforgiven slights. This focus on internal peace through strategic detachment extends even to our relationship with material wealth, a topic the Stoics addressed with great nuance. The Stoic approach to wealth is one of practical detachment and instrumental use. Stoics did not inherently condemn wealth, they saw it as a preferred indifferent. This means that while wealth is not inherently good, it is generally preferable to poverty, as it can facilitate a more comfortable and virtuous life. However, the crucial distinction is that wealth is a tool, not an end in itself. It should serve virtue, not the other way around. True happiness and fulfillment are not found in the accumulation of riches, but in the cultivation of character. This approach means using wealth wisely and with moderation. It involves avoiding excessive attachment to possessions, recognizing that they are transient and can be lost. It also means using wealth to support virtuous actions, such as generosity, supporting one's family, or contributing to the community, rather than for ostentatious displays or selfish indulgence. The Stoic strives to be master of their wealth, rather than allowing their wealth to become master of them. This perspective is critical in a world that often equates financial success with personal worth. By understanding wealth as a tool, we avoid the pitfalls of avarice and the anxiety of acquisition. This leads us to a deeper understanding of money as a simple instrument, rather than a source of ultimate power or value. In Stoic philosophy, money is viewed as a mere tool, not a master. Its value lies solely in its utility, its ability to facilitate certain actions or comforts. It holds no intrinsic moral worth and should never be allowed to dictate one's values, decisions, or sense of self-worth. The danger arises when we elevate money from a tool to an end in itself, allowing its pursuit to overshadow the cultivation of virtue and the pursuit of a meaningful life. This happens when we equate financial success with personal accomplishment or happiness. When money becomes our master, it dictates our choices, our relationships, and our priorities. We might compromise our values for financial gain, sacrifice our well-being for a paycheck, or live in constant anxiety about its accumulation and preservation. The Stoic, however, uses money as a means to an end. If money can help them live more virtuously, perhaps by allowing them time for contemplation or the ability to help others, they will acquire it. But if the pursuit of money becomes all-consuming, they will readily let it go. This detachment from money is a form of liberation. It means that our happiness and security are not dependent on our bank balance, but on our inner state. This understanding is vital, as it directly addresses the dangers associated with clinging too tightly to material possessions and the potential for accumulation to become a destructive force. The dangers of accumulation are manifold, extending beyond the mere practical inconvenience of managing possessions. For the Stoic, the relentless pursuit and hoarding of wealth or possessions can become a spiritual and emotional drain. It cultivates a mindset of scarcity, even in abundance, where one is always worried about losing what they have, or is perpetually striving for more, never satisfied. This accumulation can lead to a diminished capacity for generosity and an inflated sense of self-importance, all of which are counter to virtuous living. When our lives become centered on accumulating more, our focus shifts away from character development and meaningful experiences. We become attached to the material world, making ourselves vulnerable to the anxieties of loss and the fluctuations of fortune. This attachment can stunt our emotional growth, making us less adaptable and less content with the simple necessities of life. The true riches, as the Stoics understood, lie not in what we possess, but in how we live. This recognition of the dangers inherent in accumulation naturally leads to a greater appreciation for generosity and the true riches that come from giving, a concept that transcends material wealth and speaks to a deeper, more fulfilling form of abundance. Generosity and true riches offer a powerful antidote to the anxieties of material accumulation. While wealth can be a tool, true riches, according to the Stoics, are found in the quality of our character and our capacity for virtuous action. Generosity in this context is not just about giving money, but about offering our time, our compassion, our wisdom, and our support to others. This outward flow of selfless giving cultivates a richness within that cannot be measured by material standards. When we practice generosity, we shift our focus from what we lack to what we can offer. This act of giving inherently diminishes our attachment to possessions and cultivates a sense of connection and purpose. It is through contributing to the well-being of others that we discover a deeper, more enduring form of satisfaction. This kind of giving is truly rich because it enriches both the giver and the receiver, creating a virtuous cycle of positive impact. The Stoic understands that the greatest wealth is not what we hold on to, but what we put into practice and share with the world. This understanding of true richness prepares us to face the inevitable losses that life brings, not with despair, but with a quiet equanimity rooted in the knowledge that our deepest values remain intact. The Stoic approach to facing loss with equanimity is rooted in the understanding of impermanence. Loss, whether of a loved one, a possession, a job, or a cherished ideal, is an inevitable part of life. The Stoic does not deny the pain of loss, but chooses to meet it with a calm and rational mind. This equanimity stems from the prior practice of accepting what is beyond our control, valuing virtue above all else, and understanding that nothing external is truly ours to keep forever. When loss occurs, the Stoic acknowledges the grief and sadness that naturally arise. However, they do not allow these emotions to overwhelm them or to define their entire existence. Instead, they remember that the external object of their attachment is gone, but their inner capacity for virtue and reason remains. They focus on gratitude for the time they had and on learning from the experience rather than dwelling on what is irrevocably past. This equanimity is not a sign of heartlessness, but of profound inner strength and wisdom. It is the ability to weather life's storms without losing one's inner compass, to accept the inevitable changes of existence without succumbing to despair. This acceptance is a crucial part of understanding that all things, even life itself, are transient, a concept that resonated deeply with emperors like Marcus Aurelius. The principle of the impermanence of all things is a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy. From the grandeur of empires to the smallest blade of grass, everything in the material world is in a constant state of flux, subject to change and eventual dissolution. Recognizing this fundamental truth is essential for cultivating detachment and avoiding the suffering that comes from clinging to what is inherently transient. Our possessions, our relationships, our very lives are temporary. This understanding is not meant to induce despair, but to foster a sense of realism and gratitude. When we acknowledge that everything is impermanent, we are less likely to become overly attached to material possessions or to idealize current circumstances. We learn to appreciate what we have in the present moment, knowing that it may not last forever. This perspective also helps us to accept change more gracefully, understanding it as a natural part of existence rather than a personal affront. By embracing the reality of impermanence, we free ourselves from the futile struggle against the natural order. This acceptance prepares us not only for the loss of external things, but also for the ultimate transition of life itself, viewing grief not as an end, but as a natural phase in the ongoing cycle. Grief, in the Stoic view, is not an enemy to be vanquished, but a natural passageway. It is an inherent and necessary part of the human experience, particularly in response to loss. The Stoics did not advocate for suppressing emotions, but for understanding and processing them rationally. Grief, when acknowledged and worked through with equanimity, can be a pathway to greater wisdom, deeper compassion, and a more profound appreciation for life. It is a testament to the love and connection we shared with what or who was lost. To deny grief is to deny a fundamental aspect of our humanity. It is to resist the natural flow of life and to prolong our suffering. Instead, by allowing ourselves to feel grief, to acknowledge the pain, and to reflect on the lessons it offers, we can move through it. This process transforms the raw pain of loss into a source of profound insight and appreciation for the preciousness of existence. This understanding of grief as a natural, transformative process allows us to approach difficult transitions with greater strength and acceptance. It is this same acceptance and understanding of the grand scale of existence that Marcus Aurelius grappled with in his reflections on power and its transient nature. In his meditations, Marcus Aurelius frequently reflects on power. As emperor, he wielded immense authority, yet his Stoic philosophy dictated a particular perspective on its nature and its use. He recognized that power is a transient force, a temporary role that he occupied, not an inherent part of his true self. He saw it as a responsibility, a duty to be performed with virtue and justice, rather than an opportunity for personal gain or self-aggrandizement. His constant internal dialogue was about ensuring that power did not corrupt him. He wrote about the dangers of being swayed by flattery, the temptation to exert arbitrary authority, and the importance of remembering his own fallibility and mortality, even while holding such a high office. For Marcus, true power lay not in commanding others, but in mastering himself, controlling his impulses, governing his emotions, and acting in accordance with reason and virtue. He understood that wielding power justly required constant self-vigilance and a commitment to serve the common good. His reflections highlight a critical truth: power is a test, it reveals character. And for the Stoic, the greatest service one can render is to use any influence they possess for the benefit of humanity, not for personal aggrandizement. This leads to a deeper examination of leadership itself, revealing that true leadership is a form of service, not domination. The corrupting influence of authority is a timeless observation, one Marcus Aurelius himself grappled with daily. When individuals are placed in positions of immense power, removed from the everyday struggles of ordinary people, and insulated from immediate consequences, their perspectives can become distorted. Authority can breed arrogance, a sense of entitlement, and a detachment from empathy. The Stoics were keenly aware of this danger and emphasized the need for constant self-reflection and humility, even for those in positions of leadership. The temptation of power is to believe oneself above reproach, to view others as means to an end, and to prioritize personal agenda over the common good. This can lead to decisions that are unjust, self-serving, and ultimately detrimental to society. The constant pressure to maintain control can also lead to paranoia and a reliance on force rather than reason. It's an insidious trap where the very tools meant to serve can begin to wield their holder. Marcus continually reminded himself of his own human limitations and his duty to act with justice and fairness, even when power might tempt him otherwise. This inherent danger of authority underscores the Stoic belief that true leadership is not about domination, but about service. The Stoic perspective on true leadership, service, not domination, is a radical departure from how power is often perceived and wielded. Marcus Aurelius, in his role as emperor, did not see his leadership as an opportunity to dominate or to impose his will arbitrarily. Instead, he viewed it as a profound responsibility, a form of service to the state and its people. True leaders, from this viewpoint, are those who prioritize the well-being of others, act with justice and wisdom, and use their influence for the common good. This means that a leader's focus should be on enabling others, fostering their growth, and creating an environment where everyone can thrive, rather than on asserting personal authority or accumulating personal gain. Domination relies on fear and coercion, whereas service relies on inspiration, integrity, and a genuine commitment to upliftment. The Stoic leader understands that their authority is temporary and that their true legacy lies in the positive impact they have on the lives of others. This understanding of leadership as service is not limited to those in positions of formal power. It is a principle that can be applied by anyone in a position of influence, emphasizing the ethical use of one's capabilities for the benefit of the collective. This dedication to duty and to the greater good is carried with a profound awareness of responsibility, a weight that even the most powerful must acknowledge. The weight of responsibility is a concept that resonates deeply within Stoic philosophy, particularly for those in positions of influence. Whether it's the responsibility of a ruler to their people, a parent to their child, or an individual to their own moral compass, this weight is a constant reminder that our actions have consequences. The Stoics understood that freedom comes not from escaping responsibility, but from embracing it virtuously. It means acting with integrity, diligence, and a constant awareness of the impact of our choices. This weight is not meant to be a crushing burden, but a guiding force. It encourages us to be mindful, to deliberate carefully, and to act with intention. When we shirk responsibility, we invite chaos and suffering, both for ourselves and for those around us. When we embrace it, however, we find a sense of purpose and fulfillment. The true Stoic does not seek to avoid duty, but to perform it to the best of their ability, recognizing that this is how they align themselves with nature and reason. This sense of duty and responsibility is deeply intertwined with the physical and mental aspects of our being, highlighting the crucial connection between our minds and bodies as we explore in the next section. The Stoic understanding of the mind-body connection recognizes that our mental and physical states are inextricably linked. They did not view the mind and body as separate entities, but as interconnected aspects of a single being. This understanding informed their approach to well-being, emphasizing that physical discipline is essential for mental fortitude, and that mental discipline supports physical health. A strong, rational mind requires a well-maintained physical vessel, and vice versa. Practices like simple living, endurance of physical discomfort, and attention to diet were all part of the Stoic regimen, not for aesthetic reasons, but to strengthen their physical capacity and, by extension, their mental resilience. By training the body to endure hardship, they trained the mind to remain calm and rational in the face of adversity. Conversely, by cultivating rational thought and emotional regulation, they prevented the mind from creating unnecessary stress that could manifest as physical ailments. This integrated approach acknowledges that true well-being requires attention to both our internal world and our external physical experience. It's about cultivating a harmonious relationship between the two, allowing them to support each other in the pursuit of a virtuous life. This symbiotic relationship is what allows for the development of mental fortitude, leading to a deeper, quieter form of knowing. Physical discipline for mental fortitude was a core tenet of Stoic training. The ancient philosophers understood that a disciplined body could lead to a disciplined mind. By subjecting themselves to voluntary hardship, such as enduring cold, simple diets, or strenuous physical activity, they were not merely toughening their bodies, but also strengthening their wills and their capacity for rational control. This physical training served as a practical laboratory for testing and honing their mental resilience. When the body is accustomed to discomfort, the mind becomes less susceptible to complaints and distractions caused by physical unease. The ability to push through physical fatigue translates into an ability to persevere through mental challenges. This deliberate engagement with physical discomfort is a way of proving to oneself that one is not a slave to sensory experience, thereby reinforcing mental control. It's about developing a robust inner resilience that can withstand the inevitable stresses of life. This rigorous physical training, coupled with mental exercises, builds a foundation of strength that allows for a deeper, more profound form of knowing, a quiet, internal comprehension that transcends mere intellectual understanding. Beyond intellectual understanding and emotional reaction lies the silence of true knowing. This is a state of profound inner clarity and intuitive understanding that emerges when the mind is quieted, the ego's noise is reduced, and one is fully aligned with reason and nature. It is not about acquiring new information, but about accessing a deeper, innate wisdom that is present within all of us, obscured by the distractions of daily life. This knowing arises from a place of stillness, where unfiltered truth can be perceived. This state is not achieved through forceful effort or intellectual debate alone. It emerges more naturally when the mind is at rest, free from the incessant chatter of worries, desires, and judgments. It is in these moments of quiet contemplation, when we are truly present and unburdened by the need to prove ourselves or achieve external validation, that insights can arise organically. It's like waiting for the ripples on a pond to settle so you can see the clear reflection at the bottom. This silence is not emptiness, but fullness, a fullness of being that transcends the limitations of the ego and intellectual reasoning. It is the quiet confidence that comes from within, an unwavering inner core that remains steady amidst the chaos of the external world. The unwavering core within is the unshakable foundation of strength and peace that the Stoic aims to cultivate. It is the essence of the self that remains when the ego's illusions, emotional turbulence, and external attachments are stripped away. This core is characterized by reason, virtue, and acceptance, qualities that are not subject to the whims of fortune or the passage of time. It is a sanctuary of stability that exists regardless of external circumstances. This unwavering core is not something that is found or bestowed. It is built through diligent practice. Each act of reason, each virtuous choice, each moment of acceptance strengthens this inner citadel. It is the result of a life lived in accordance with nature and reason, where the focus is on internal development rather than external acquisition. When this core is strong, external challenges may cause temporary disturbance, but they cannot fundamentally shake one's inner peace or sense of self. This steadfast inner anchor allows for a consistent practice of self-reflection, a daily habit that deepens our understanding of ourselves and allows us to continually refine our character. The daily practice of reflection is a vital Stoic discipline, not as a chore, but as a powerful tool for self-discovery and continuous improvement. It involves setting aside time each day, often in the morning or evening, to inwardly review one's actions, thoughts, and emotions from the previous day. This introspective process is about examining how well one has lived up to Stoic principles, identifying areas of weakness, and reinforcing positive habits. It's a commitment to ongoing self-awareness and personal growth. During reflection, one might ask, where did I act with reason? Where did I succumb to passion? Did I treat others justly? Did I succumb to vanity or fear? Did I accept what I could not control? This honest self-assessment is not about self-flagellation, but about diagnostic learning. It is about understanding the patterns of one's own mind and behavior so that one can consciously choose to act more virtuously in the future. This process of honest self-inquiry directly leads to a deeper understanding of oneself. This daily practice of self-examination is particularly powerful when combined with journaling, a method that provides a tangible record of one's inner journey and allows for the clear observation of personal evolution over time. Journaling for self-discovery is a practical and profound method for engaging in the daily practice of reflection. By writing down our thoughts, experiences, and insights, we create a tangible record of our inner landscape. This act of putting words to our feelings and observations brings clarity to the often chaotic flow of consciousness. It allows us to observe our own patterns of behavior, track our progress in cultivating virtue, and identify the recurring obstacles that hinder our growth. When you journal, you essentially engage in a dialogue with yourself. You can explore your reactions to events, question your assumptions, and articulate your deepest values. This process of externalizing your inner world makes it easier to see your own biases, your hidden fears, and your true desires with greater objectivity. It's like having a wise friend who listens without judgment, allowing you to explore your thoughts and emotions thoroughly. This consistent practice of journaling not only aids in self-discovery, but also helps to quiet the inner storm of constant mental activity. It leads to a profound sense of self-understanding and reveals the unfolding of one's true identity, a discovery that is often found beneath the surface of everyday consciousness. As you consistently practice reflection, journaling, and the core tenets of Stoicism, you begin to experience the unfolding of your true identity. This is not about discovering a hidden, predetermined self, but rather about the gradual shedding of the ego's constructions and societal conditioning. It is the process of revealing the deeper, more authentic self that has been present all along, masked by layers of learned behaviors, insecurities, and false beliefs. This unfolding is marked by a growing congruence between your inner values and your outer actions. This true identity is not static. It is a dynamic unfolding, a continuous process of becoming. It is characterized by a greater sense of inner peace, resilience, and a profound connection to something larger than the individual ego. You begin to act not out of a need to prove anything, but out of an inherent understanding of what is right and good. Your actions become less reactive and more intentional, guided by a well-developed inner compass. This journey of becoming is often accompanied by a calming of the inner turmoil, a quieting of the constant mental chatter that has long dominated our experience, leading us to a profound stillness. The quieting of the inner storm is a direct result of consistent Stoic practice. The constant mental chatter, the anxieties, the fears, the self-critical thoughts, these are the winds and rain of our internal tempest. As we learn to observe our thoughts without judgment, to separate impressions from reality, and to focus on what is within our control, these storms gradually subside. The mind becomes less turbulent, more settled, and more capable of experiencing a profound sense of peace. This quieting is not achieved by suppressing thoughts, but by understanding their nature and ceasing to identify with them. When you realize that your thoughts are not your identity, but simply mental events, their power to disturb you diminishes. This process leads to a greater clarity and a deeper appreciation for the present moment, free from the constant internal noise that previously hijacked your attention. This gradual taming of the inner storm leads to a remarkable shift, the discovery of a profound stillness that lies beneath the surface of all mental activity, a quiet space where true knowing resides. Beneath the constant ebb and flow of thoughts, emotions, and external stimuli, there exists the stillness beneath the surface. This is the fundamental ground of our being, a state of pure awareness that is always present, independent of our mental activity. The Stoic path, with its emphasis on quieting the mind and developing self-awareness, leads us to this profound stillness. It's not something that needs to be created, but something that is uncovered, like revealing a clear pond by removing the debris from its surface. This stillness is the source of our deepest sense of peace and clarity. It is where true understanding arises, unclouded by the ego's narratives or emotional reactivity. In this quiet space, we can directly perceive reality as it is, without the distortions of our personal biases and desires. It is the ultimate sanctuary, unassailable by external circumstances. Experiencing this stillness is a profound realization. It allows us to observe the very act of thinking without being caught up in it, leading us to a deeper understanding of the fundamental processes underlying our consciousness. This is the dissolution of the persistent I think. As we experience the stillness beneath the surface, a remarkable transformation occurs. The persistent, self-referential narrative of I think begins to dissolve. The constant internal commentary, the ego's ceaseless stream of judgments and identifications, starts to fade into the background. This is not about ceasing to think, but about recognizing that the identification with the thinking process, the belief that I am my thoughts, is the construct that creates our sense of a separate, isolated self. When this identification weakens, we observe our thoughts more objectively. We see them as mental phenomena passing through consciousness rather than as defining aspects of our identity. This reduces the ego's relentless grip, leading to a profound sense of liberation. It's like watching clouds drift across the sky without believing you are the cloud itself. The ego's power to cause suffering diminishes when we no longer grant it ultimate authority over our experience. This gradual dissolution of the ego's rigid boundaries moves us beyond the confines of the individual self. The journey of Stoic self-cultivation ultimately leads beyond the self. This is not an annihilation of the individual, but a radical expansion of perspective. As the ego's grip loosens and the sense of a separate, isolated I dissolves, we begin to experience a profound sense of interconnectedness. We realize that our individual consciousness is not an isolated island, but a part of a much larger, unified whole. This realization transcends the limitations of personal identity and opens us up to a broader understanding of existence. This state of being beyond the limited self is characterized by a deep sense of peace, compassion, and universal awareness. The concerns that once seemed paramount, personal gain, individual recognition, the defense of the ego, begin to lose their urgency. Instead, there is a growing appreciation for the well-being of all beings and a desire to live in harmony with the natural order. This expansive awareness is the resonance of the universal, the echo of the interconnectedness that binds all things. As we move beyond the confines of the individual self, we begin to experience the resonance of the universal. This is the profound feeling of being connected to something far grander than ourselves, to the rational order of the cosmos, to the interconnectedness of all life, and to the underlying unity of existence. It is a state of deep harmony, where the boundaries between self and other begin to blur, and one feels a profound sense of belonging and purpose within the larger tapestry of the universe. This resonance is not a passive state of being lost in the crowd, but an active recognition of our integral role within the greater whole. It is the understanding that our individual existence, while unique, is part of a continuous stream of becoming. This profound connection brings a deep sense of peace and fulfillment, a quiet joy that arises from aligning oneself with the natural flow of life. It is the culmination of a journey that began with the simple observation of what we can and cannot control, leading us to the ultimate truth that awaits. Having journeyed through ancient wisdom, dismantled illusions, and cultivated inner resilience, we arrive at a pivotal moment. We've explored control, desire, distraction, and the dissolution of the ego. We've contemplated nature, reason, and our place within the grand cosmic order. We stand at the precipice of profound understanding, bathed in the quiet resonance of the universal. But as we gaze into this expansive peace, one question lingers, a whisper at the edge of our awareness. It is the final, lingering inquiry born from this profound journey of self-discovery, a question that probes the very essence of this awakened state. What remains when the constructed self, the ego, has truly dissolved? What is the ultimate nature of this peace that is so unshakable? And so, the journey culminates not in a sudden revelation, but in the quiet realization that the eternal calm awaits. It is not a destination to be reached, but a state of being to be embraced, a constant presence accessible through the consistent practice of Stoic principles. It is the unshakable tranquility that arises from accepting what is, from acting virtuously, and from understanding our interconnectedness with all things. It is the peace that comes from relinquishing the struggle against the inevitable, and from finding freedom not in external circumstances, but in the mastery of our inner world. You have seen the path. The eternal calm is not a future reward, but a present possibility, available now, in this moment, when you choose to align your will with reason and nature. Make sure to subscribe for more videos and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new video. We'll see you in the next one.